And we're live. I'm Anthony Dream Johnson, founder of 21 Studios, here with episode 51 of the Red Man Group. This episode's on the Red Pill lens, how it applies to your life in total. We are broadcasting live out of 21 Studios Global Command in Orlando, Florida. We have an epic panel today, including myself, obviously. And from my left to right, we have Socrates from 21 Convention and Manning Up Smart, Drew Bay from Bay.com, alumni speaker of the convention, the one and only Elliot Hulse from Strength Camp, world famous for being Elliot Hulse. We've gotten to know him past couple days, and it has been absolutely fucking awesome. To my right, we have Richard Cooper from Entrepreneurs and Cars, alumni speaker of the 21 Convention, and of course, the godfather of the Manosphere with an upcoming keynote address, Rollo Tomasi, author of the Rational ML book series, and you can find him at therationalml.com. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me here in Orlando, Florida.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
So let's start off with a quick round table, 2-minute recap. Sock, what do you got going on, man?
Dude, we are just finalizing production on a children's storybook series. So it's essentially filling a gap for strong masculine role figures, fathers, and having a positive influence, and starting with children and fathers before they get broken. You know, when we talk about improving men's lives, usually you find the red pill after you've been broken. What we're trying to do is provide the segue for men who may have been grossly underfathered or not have the skill sets or something to imprint on as a role model appropriately to be appropriate fathers and to make that connection with their children and to develop those life skills and transfer that kind of knowledge forward and provide that tool and ability to do so. So we're looking at kind of finalizing that this coming week and then getting into post-production work.
Yeah. Drew?
I got some books on physique transformation and physical performance coming out in the next couple of months, and getting something special prepared for the next 21 convention event in May.
Yeah, the upcoming Patriarchs event.
Got something planned for all the fathers there.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Elliot, you're this is your third time on Red Man Group, 2nd or third? Yeah.
I think it's the second.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man. What do you, obviously we've been hanging out a couple days here in Orlando, but what do you have going on with your work right now?
My work? Well, two of the biggest projects are Strength Camp and Grounding Camp.
Okay.
And Strength Camp is where we transform boys into men, get people to be the strongest version of themselves through lifting. I was a professional strongman. I played college football. So initiating people through the iron has been a passion of mine for many, many years. And then Grounding Camp is really where we're ministering to the souls of men. We've got the body, and we've got the soul here. And Grounding Camp is evolved into a sort of initiation process whereby we get out of our own way by unstifling through active meditation and bioenergetics. So a lot of breathing and movement and embodiment, you know, chest pounding and shouting and shit like that too.
And these are live events you host throughout Florida.
Throughout the U.S. Actually, we were just in London and Amsterdam, and I did some there. Last time I did an event in London, we had 500 Brits show up, and we were shouting on a Sunday morning. Said, "Let's wake up the Queen."
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good time.
Badass. Oh, where's the next one at too?
It's June in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an incredible location where we can just be men away from society.
How do people get tickets?
Groundingcamp.com, but
Cool.
They're not on sale yet. So
Okay. I know the feeling, yeah.
yeah,
We got tickets launching 31st for the 21 Convention Patriarch Edition. Pretty excited about
I'm
that.
excited to be there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it's like that's out of the bag now.
So we have a big surprise. Elliot
Surprise.
signed on last night for the 21 Convention Patriarch Edition.
Yeah.
Huge addition to the event. I'm very excited to have you, man.
Yeah,
Well done.
very excited. It's like a dream come true for me,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah, I was thinking deeply about fatherhood all year. It's just been a theme in my mind and on my heart.
Yeah.
And to see what you guys are doing and to have this invitation, like I said, it's literally my dreams coming true. So thank you.
Hell yeah, man. And big shout out to Hunter Drew for inspiring the event. It was him asking me about doing an event for him someday that really brought that on. And then finding you guys, the fathers, everyone here will be speaking at it except me. I might do something small. We'll see.
We're working on
But
it.
yeah, I'm working on it. I got to be a
You
father,
got 20
Mhm.
years.
For fathers, by fathers, Patriarch Edition. Just like the Red Man Group Patriarchs.
Yep.
So, Rich,
Yeah.
let's move on to you.
It's been a busy week. So I came down here on Wednesday. I left the Toronto area in a snowstorm, and we had to sit on the runway for 2 hours to get de-iced. And here I've been in paradise.
Yeah.
And it's warm. It's warm here. You know, we were shooting guns at a tactical training ranch, Actually, Trevor's here. We have an audience tonight. This is the first time we've had a audience.
Live studio.
Yeah,
Live studio audience.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he invited us down to do some tactical training on this large property. It was like 25. How many acres was it? 25? 50 acres.
Yeah.
Big ass property. And we shoot Navy SEAL issued rifles, like these $7,000-8,000 sniper rifles with big scopes on them, and you can shoot a target, a small target at range, 800 yards accurately, just by listening to what these guys tell you to do. So that was pretty incredible.
I saw you hit a target at 600 yards.
Yeah, well, like
that was fucking epic.
yeah, 2 back to back, and that
Yeah.
was that was hard. It was actually hard to get the rifle zeroed in properly. And then today we did some filming in a
Yeah.
Lamborghini. So if you guys are following us on social media, on Instagram and stuff like that, or Twitter, Rolla was live streaming Periscope from the car. Yeah, so we got some very interesting footage coming out for you guys. Some of it, is going to be tied into the upcoming convention. Some of it's tied into masculine companies that are supporting the creation of content for men, like what we do here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it certainly helps us set up studios like this and fly people down and collaborate together so we can put together great content that helps you guys level up in life. So it's been a fun week. I'm looking forward to the next couple of days. We're hanging out for a few more days.
Yep.
We're going to get shit ton more done. And that's about it. Then I'm back to the cold white north. Rolla?
Yeah, you're really in for it. I was looking at the weather report before I came out here, and it was like 30 below where you were.
It's cold.
Yeah.
It's cold.
I know it was pretty cold when I left. Just came out here on Tuesday. Tuesday, and I have anybody that doesn't know this, I have a house here in Florida as well. So just doing some things, squaring things away at my new place, and then working with you guys. This has been kind of like a working vacation. I think we did a little bit of fishing on.
The fishing.
Let's not forget that part.
Pulled a big ass fish out of the water.
And there's some pictures of this guy with his first.
That was a
his
fight. I
first
got to
one.
tell you, like,
Yeah.
being a kid pulling those little like bait fish out of the water,
Yeah.
and then pulling out something that weighed like a 45-pound plate, and it's fighting.
Yeah, trying to get away from
Fighting
you.
you.
Yeah.
I was telling Anthony I want to do like sport fishing, but deep sea. Like I want to get like a sailfish or a big shark.
Oh
or
yeah,
something.
yeah. You got to do some charges. You got to
Yeah.
do it in the springtime, which maybe we'll be doing pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
here with the
Maybe we'll
Patriarch.
even offer it to the VIPs as an upgrade at a
Oh, yeah.
convention.
That might be fun.
So if you guys like that, say something in the comments or put it below just so we know.
Yeah. So pretty much we've just been doing some promotional stuff here, also signing some contracts and
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
some other things, and making
Legal
making the Red Man Group a little bit more of a formal organization, a formal company, if you will.
Yeah, we intend to do this for a while.
Yes, we have signed our names on the dotted line, and I'm sure that eventually we'll kind of leak out all of the information. But we've got some things planned, and this is one of them. I sat in a Lamborghini today, and oh, my neck. But so other than that, just working on book 4, and that I'm trying to get to a point where I can just focus on nothing else but the book. And one of my goals for this trip was to see if I could find some way to sort of isolate myself so I can write for like weeks at a time.
Wow.
Here in Florida. So
You've had a few, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
You've had a few big posts come out lately too, right?
yeah. I did one on the Gillette commercial, but I did that, and that was a little bit more. I fleshed that out a little bit more beyond that. The most recent post I have is called Gender War, and it has been, actually something we'll probably talk about today.
Yeah.
I see the Gillette commercial. I see the APA ruling, the American Psychological Association, ruling that traditional masculinity is toxic masculinity. It is. It's not just. I mean, you saw if you saw Dr. Sean Smith's video about that. He risks his livelihood. He risks his license if he goes against that, and that is a set of guidelines that is entirely motivated by ideology. And so I was writing against stuff like that. But as you guys all know, back on the 21 convention, I did a State of the Manosphere address, and I'm looking forward to that coming out soon.
January 29th.
29th. Okay, so now you all have a date. But in that, and then also on our December 29th show, we made some predictions for the new year. And if you want to go back and look at some of those predictions, you can. But I knew they were going to come true, but I didn't think they were going to come true in the first 2 weeks of January. Going forward, I really feel like we are stepping into what I call a gender war. I've got a hashtag called gender war right now. And so whenever I see something that I think relates to that, I'll go and throw that out on Twitter. But I see the APA. I see the Gillette commercial. I see what PETA did. I don't know if you guys saw the PETA commercial as well. And then you've got Serena Williams that's supposed to be giving some sort of speech about, women power on the Super Bowl. And I knew the Super Bowl commercials were going to be very gender motivated, but they're already trying to precede it. They're already trying to say, hey, make sure you watch this, because this is the year, really 2019 through 2020, where we're going to be getting into we're laying the groundwork, I should say, for the social conditions that will lead up to the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what you wanted to talk about today. So,
Yeah, that's one of the things we'll get into today, probably some politics, because the red pill. So today's topic is the red pill applied to other areas of your life. And we were talking about, you and I a few days ago were talking about our, like our relationships with our parents and how we viewed that growing up. Today, we were talking about politics and the red pill and how that all ties in. So yeah, updates are done.
Yeah.
You're leading the show. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll give a final note here. So on the 29th, we're dropping the State of the Manosphere from Earl Tomasi, like you mentioned. Same day as Trump's State of the Union. That's going on. January 31st, tickets drop for the first time ever to the 21 Convention Patriarch Edition. Everyone here is a speaker at the event. Myself will be like ceremonial at it. Everyone else will be a content speaker though. Elliot is probably the final speaker we're going to tag on to the event. I think we have 14 now, maybe 15. Gotta double check. That's looking huge. I was expecting maybe 150, 200 guys at it, but it might be quite a bit more than that now, 300, 400 guys. I got to put a cap on that, sign on a dotted line in a couple of days here for the event space and all that.
Yeah, so if you want those tickets, you're going to have to watch out for the early bird price on the 31st.
That's right. That's right. I'll make a mention as well that Tactical Soap is now a sponsor of 21 Studios, the Redman Group, and Entrepreneurs in Cars. So if you're watching this before you get further into the show, check out the description underneath the video, buy some soap, support a company that does not punch men in the dick.
Yeah.
This is a company that supports men. We all know the founder personally, me and Rich and Rollo, and Sock Andrew Bay. He was at the event this past year. This guy's awesome. He supports men. He supports what we're doing. He supports the creation of more content like this. Videos, events, interviews, all these things. Buy Tactical Soap, support the men, support the content, support yourself, support the country you live in by buying soap. Simple as that. Plus, it's got pheromones. So I do like the topic that it's the red pill lens applied to the totality of your life. That's kind of how I was thinking about it. It's like the red pill does obviously affect how you interact with women, affects dating, marriage, children, parenting, all that.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we go across the panel and just spend a couple minutes talking about how we've unplugged from like the sexual dynamics of what the red pill was kind of solving, maybe for a lot of us because of trauma. I mean, it was for me anyway.
Yeah.
And maybe like whatever you've seen differently now that you're red pilled.
Let's start with Sock.
Yeah.
Interesting you talk about that. I know that probably personally we probably discuss it, but probably not as openly on a forum like this. I can sit down and say we talk about unplugging from the blue pill and seeing the matrix and everything else and becoming aware of the red pill and all that, what that constitutes. I can sit down and say my personal journey has led and pretty much changed my life from being not necessarily celibate, but childless, that I would sit down and say I would not be able to put out a genetic lineage. And at 48, I ended up having my own child, and completely taking on that role and mantle. And it personally is probably the high watermark of my life, bar anything I've ever done in my life. And that means professionally, personally, activity-wise, everything else. And it's gone beyond that. Let me take a quick step back further. And primarily, I have two people here that's sitting on this panel. I owe a tremendous debt of gratitude. First is Rollo's work that extends over past a decade. That he originally, when I was reading some of his work on a blog and on forums, he was a voice in the internet. He wasn't a real dude. It was just something there. You just don't quite believe it. And it's progressed to the point as all this has become mainstream. He and I are actually able to meet. He's been at my house. I've been able to meet his wife, and have that personal, real world face meet interaction. That is very much a reflection of how the red pill has transformed over time. In addition to that, I'm changing my professional work because of it. I look at what I do as an architect, and essentially I'm building hollow shells for people to fill. What do you do when the people filling your buildings and creations and giving light to society and culture and civilization are diseased and hollowed and decrepit and rotting from within? That it doesn't matter what the architecture is. And not only that, culture will not create wondrous architecture when it's in that vein. You look at any of these collapsing societies, they did not do monumental work, that lasts and tests of time. Personally, I'm taking a big step back. I'm letting that go because it was interesting when you meet people whose life you touched transform. Rollo talks about, saving a guy from suicide. The first time somebody told me I still taste the taste of metal in my mouth. And guys like you help get me past that. And then I go into work and I'm dealing with client issues. It just doesn't compare. I can't tell you that the best grand opening of any facility I've ever done, and it's been, $20-30 million worth of work, that it doesn't compare to see people who have quality lives, that have quality relationships, who are working on their marriages and succeeding at them and seeing wonderful children come out of that, compared to any body of work that's going to last beyond my life. And so you sit down and say that sheer joy and fulfillment, that's changed my life. And that's what Red Pill's done for me personally.
Damn, well put. Drew, how's the Red Pill affected your life?
Oh, man.
Beyond marriage.
A few years ago, actually over a period of time, I had become less and less my own mental point of origin. And at the time, I didn't recognize it as such. It wasn't until after the 2017 convention where things really started to come together, and realizing the direction things were going in and how unhappy I was with marriage, and just feeling like, I'm not accomplishing anything. I'm not going anywhere, not happy with it. Making myself my own mental point of origin and deciding I need to focus on my mission and make everything else, secondary to that, has made a tremendous difference. Marriage improved. I'm much happier. Wife is much happier.
I can tell just talking to you, man. I've known you since 2009. You're like,
and well, I can't remember clearly, but I think we might have been talking at one point about making plans to do something. And my first thought was, I need to find out if we've got anything going on this weekend. And looking back on that, like, holy crap, what the fuck was I thinking? My only thought at that moment should have been, well, do I want to do this? Okay, yeah, then we will. And if anything else is going on, well, they can change it and plan around it. It has been just a 180-degree change. Even, not just the marriage, but also understanding this and being able to teach my son this. I think of all the dumb shit that I did when I was a teenager, a lot of it because of one-itis. Yeah. One-itis has probably caused me more misery as a teenager and caused me to do more dumb shit for women. And I know I'm not the only one. It's probably the amount of dumb shit men have done for women because of unitis is probably almost unimaginable.
And how old's your son now, Luke?
He's 13. He's not going to go through that because I'm talking to him about this stuff regularly. Actually, he was present for Rich's presentation, and I tell him over and over, remember this stuff, especially you don't pursue women, you pursue excellence, and they will pursue you. Hopefully, I'm not butchering the quote too much.
It's a general idea.
Yeah. But also, my work is not teaching this stuff to people. My work is helping people, get themselves in shape. But most of the men that come to me for that are doing it because they want to be more successful with women. Unfortunately, a lot of them, they come to me after they've already gone through divorce. And they're like, well, I'm back on the market and I look like shit and I need to get back to where I was. And so not only am I able to help them with that, but knowing this stuff, I'm able to help them avoid a lot of the mistakes that a lot of guys are making that don't have this information. So I feel like I'm providing a lot more value to the people that I'm coaching than what they would get from just the exercise stuff. And it shows. I don't want to give out personal details about any of my clients and their girlfriends and wives and other shit like that, but telling them to read Rollo's books, watch Entrepreneurs in Cars. I have shared your video on not dating single mothers with more men than I can imagine. Every time I share it, a bunch of single mother skanks get mad at me and send me a bunch of hate mail. And I keep thinking, you know what? Fuck you. I've just saved some guy from putting up with your bullshit. But they thank me. And I get the horror stories and the DMs and the PMs about the recent single mother that they dated and all the crap that they went through. So I'm thrilled at how my own life has improved, but also that I'm able to pass all this stuff on, and it's making a huge difference in a lot of other guys' lives. So it's been awesome.
And having known you for 10 years now, man, you definitely are. I've sensed clarity from you and more assertiveness and aggressiveness, and it's good seeing you post about it all the time and hearing you talk.
I told Eric from Sideout.
Yeah.
2017 lit a fire under my ass that was desperately needed. 2018 poured jet fuel on it.
Hell yeah, there we go.
So we're not talking about money and stuff. My income has doubled since the 2018 because because of the reinforcement of making myself my mission and being more assertive, being more aggressive with things like the marketing and just throwing this dating stuff out in there. I've avoided it before because it's fitness stuff, but now I'm thinking, what the fuck? I'm going to say whatever the hell I want. The reaction, for example, I posted something today. I said, ladies, if your husbands have gotten lazy and comfortable and they're not the stud that you married and they're not turning you on anymore, I can help. And no, not like that, but you've got to buy them my books. And if they apply the information in them, then within a few months, you're going to be changing your panties every time you see them with a shirt off. And before, I wouldn't have posted something like that because I'd be like, well, people are going to get upset. I don't fucking care. Anybody that would get upset is probably not somebody that I want to work with anyways. Surprisingly, every time I post something like this, it's the women that are sending me the messages and saying, how much they like the difference in the approach. And yes, my husband needs to do this and all. So guys, your fucking wives notice when you get fat and lazy and they're not happy with it and you're not getting them wet anymore. You gotta fucking take care of yourselves and get in shape. But just like I wouldn't have said this like 2 years ago because I've been, I don't fucking care. If you do, you're not somebody I want to work with anyways. But it's been fucking phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
So FG.
Elliot, how's the red pill affected your life since finding it? You found MGTOW first and you got a red pill, right?
Yeah, I did. And the one thing that comes to mind, the overall umbrella feeling, is civil disobedience and a simple act of non-compliance. And what I mean by that is that to be awoken to how we're manipulated causes people to do things like MGTOW. Just, okay, I'm being manipulated, so I'm going to step back. MGTOW being an example of how they're being manipulated by women. But what I've discovered is that it's a paradigm that oppresses in this particular way, not just women, but a feminized society, a system designed to the agenda, you guys call it. There's the feminist primary agenda. Is that how you say it?
Feminine,
female primary social order.
Right. And so when I started looking deeper into that, I started to see all the other tendrils that kind of came out from that and wrapped itself around us unconsciously. And a lot of that had to do with consumption and overconsumption. And I think the area where we are blinded at how much we overconsume and how it feeds into the feminine primary society.
You don't mean just buying, you mean like over-consuming information or all that shit, right?
All of it, yeah. Consumption it's very feminine. The school system set us up as boys who are very active and extroverted to be very passive and consumptive, like a vagina. You know, a vagina takes in. The more you're a consumer, the more you're a vagina, the more you're a woman. So spending, consuming information, eating, addictions, consuming. Just think every time that you're taking in, you're being like a woman, you're being like a beta, you're doing what they want you to do. It's not masculine at all. Civil disobedience is masculine. Boundaries is masculine. Being conservative is masculine. And so as a fitness coach, I began thinking about, I'm always thinking about improving my health. But then as a rebel, which I've always been even before I discovered Blue Pill, I love,
man.
huh?
You're in the right place.
Yeah, I love, yes, of course. I love disobeying and I like shaking shit up. And I think that if we began adopting a lifestyle of saying no, that will make a big difference. And so I've decided to begin that with fasting. And this is something that people have used throughout forever, not just as a means for health and development and fat loss and spirituality, but as a symbol of non-compliance. You know, like Gandhi, stop eating. They all want to strike. Our system is set up such that it succeeds because we consume. If everybody would just stop eating, as crazy as that sounds, as mind-blowing or nuts as that sounds to you right now, because you're so conditioned to consume, to suck in, to eat, to be fat, to be sick, to be lazy, to be dependent.
It reminds me a lot of debt too.
Debt, all of it.
Yeah.
But I see it as the simplest act of non-compliance that will break the system and add to your health and longevity is to skip a meal. So fasting, I'm finding that fasting has been, for many years for me, it has been mind expanding and also invigorating for my body. But now as a result of Red Pill, I see it as an act of non-compliance that is a strike at the system that oppresses us. So stop buying their food, stop eating their shit, stop consuming so much.
You're doing pretty hardcore stuff. You're going 2-3 days at a time.
Yeah, extended fasting.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a professional strongman, so at my biggest, I was 250 pounds. I knew what it's like to be a consumer. I've got 4 children. I don't have a minimalist life. But at this point, I've decided that my health, but also my values in life and the stance that I take are far more important than having, huge muscles or being big. I'd rather be small and powerful like a fucking spark or dynamite than a big, lazy, fat fuck that can.
Pretty sure your personality is still huge.
Yeah, let me stop right there. But yeah, stop eating. That's where I'm at right now.
Badass.
Mm-hmm.
Rich?
You
How's
go,
it
man.
going?
You
Yeah.
go. Yeah, let's
All right, let's do it.
let's hear from the commander-in-chief at 21 Studios.
So I've been thinking about this. Yeah, you mentioned, I think Roland mentioned where the show went, like parents and stuff.
Mm.
So I'll say that one of the ways Red Pill's affected me that I haven't talked about much publicly is my brothers and sisters. I have 1 brother and 2 sisters. So mostly it'd be the sisters. My brother, I understand a little bit more because I'm a man too. He's a young man himself. He's 21. So I have a little sister who's 27. An older one, he lives here with the 21 Studios with me. Who's 35. And I've gotten to know them my whole life. I grew up with them. Our parents are still married, grew up together in a big house. But since finding the Red Pill, way more than pickup ever taught me. Pickup taught me how to pick up chicks. It did not teach me about women. It taught me a little bit, but not much. But the Red Pill taught me about women. So seeing my sister now at 35, still not married, still single, like that kind of shit. I can understand how she's dating now. I can understand her behaviors, going out with her to parties. We go downtown, we meet people. She knows friends of mine. I know her friends, sometimes a little better than others. Even the younger one too, she's 27. She has a boyfriend now. He's older. He's like late 30s, I think. And so I'm watching how they date, watching how they interact, listening to the things they say. And it's enlightening. Like I understand them better. And they're my blood. They're, we have the same exact parents, as far as I know. So that's been the past couple of years since finding the Red Pill. It's been really neat. And without it, I would not understand them and be as, not that I'm super close to them, but we're pretty close, I think, for being adults now. Especially my older sister and I, we lived here, in the same house. So that's been, that was a surprise. I found the red pill through one of our attendees, Nicholas Cloud, who watched a speech I gave on a crazy ass ex-wife. And I was at that time focused on pickup, getting back in the game, and personality disorders, like we're literally seeing on the shelf here. So that was my focus then. But finding the red pill, that was a really eye-opening experience itself, finding Rola's work in particular. But I did not anticipate that it would improve my relationships and understanding of my own family. My mother too, my cousins. I got a cousin too who's now getting, going through divorce. And from a distance, I can spot exactly what's going on. It's the exact same shit that's happening top to bottom that we read about all the time: frivolous divorce, all that bullshit. So without that, I'd be in the dark. I'd be ignorant. And I'm not. I understand a lot better now with a high degree of certainty what I'm watching, what I'm seeing. Another one too is that I had a young cousin, like a second cousin, Mark, a couple months ago, killed himself at 20 years old. And without the knowledge of the red pill and the manosphere overall, but especially the red pill, he was 20 and he offed himself, college football player, star football player, he offed himself over a girl. Had I not had the red pill and the understanding that I've developed through that knowledge and through that study, I would be just like the rest of my family. I would not understand. It would be this mystery. It's like, oh, shit happens. People die. Men kill themselves more than women, and that's it. No, it's more than that. I can look at that situation and understand the blue pill bullshit he was fed and accepted. And then sure enough, a chick came along, one-itis, all that. A combination of factors for sure. But it was the blue pill stuff, I think, that set him off. That is what pushed him over the edge at that point, and he's gone now. And as bad as that is, it's fucking horrible. I would much rather be enlightened and understand that than just be ignorant and just, look at it as a tragic event. So it's more than that. It's something I can learn from, as horrifying as it is. So I'd say it's improved my family relationships in a myriad of ways, whether it's sisters, cousins, or even my little cousin who killed himself. It's made my life a lot better. I always think that you never go wrong facing reality. You never go wrong finding the truth, no matter how dark or positive that is. So there we go.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody that's shared those experiences. Those are solid. I think for me, one of the things that led me to the red pill, part of that trauma wasn't just the single mommy breakup episode, but it was also what happened for about 3 years from 2014 to 2015, 16, where I had to deal a lot with lobbyists and political critics on bills in Parliament because of a business that gets people out of credit card debt at a discounted rate. And I saw the difference in the values and the views of the political parties. And it was confusing because you hear all these people autistically screeching about how we need to care about people more and love them more and make sure that they've got the skills and tools available to become the better version of themselves. And yet there's political parties that don't support values that accomplish that. There's ideologies that don't support the accomplishment of those things that men seek. And The Rational Male, of course, was the book that woke me up, that made me understand, the way that men and women interact and why things happen, sort of thing. And it's a deep rabbit hole and you keep going down it, and I still learn things every day, of course. But the political aspect of it for me was big. It was like, okay, well, recently I've been thinking about it a lot. And, people ask me from time to time about, views on politics. And you'll even see today, like if you go to Instagram, there's a picture of me, Anthony, and Elliot standing by the Lambo. And the comments were, the MAGA hat makes you look like a dummy. And who's the Mexican at the end of the picture?
I think they called Elliot a racist, right?
Yeah. And because I think you had a MAGA hat on too, right? But like me as a Canadian, like I look at that hat and I just think, well, it's red and it says make a country great again. So what's wrong with that? That seems like a pretty good thing. And, as time kind of passed, like when you apply the red pill to the political landscape, I saw really how bad of a prime minister Justin Trudeau is. And every time I've watched him in an interview since I've been red pilled, because he's our prime minister currently, it's the same thing over and over again. It's let's make men less so women can be, become more. And how does that serve society? How does that serve the tribal nature of human beings? And I don't believe that it does. It's sure as heck not red pilled. So that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of like go down tonight, maybe, talk a little bit as well about is how do you identify what political ideology or system best aligns with the red pill? Because I think that's an interesting question. I'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
When you and I were discussing tonight's topic, I think it was like 2 days ago, we were just kind of kicking back and brainstorming and stuff. And I think I was telling you some stories about how my mom is and how my dad is. And my dad was a full-on like hardcore atheist. Okay, I mean, very, very analytical. He was like Mr. Spock. Okay, now not in a bad way. He's not like one of these guys like who goes out there and preaches it or anything like that. He's not a Sam. He certainly wouldn't be a Sam Harris. He certainly wouldn't be anybody like that. But he just simply had no belief. And then you said, well, what's your mom like? And I said, well, my mom is kind of a lovable ditz, right? She was a born again Christian. And then when we're talking about this, like, how the hell did those two people come together, right? Well, then I started like going over this, and I've done this before. I kind of worked this over in my head a few times. I'm amazed that I was even the result of these two, this woman and this man coming together to have not just me but my brother as well, and so when I look at it, you got to figure out what the time, what the social setting was, I guess, during like say the 50s or 60s, when they're meeting and dating and all that, and then putting the things that I know about intersexual dynamics into that context or into that framework. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because we have to do that today as well. We can't. I think we have kind of this mixed up. Well, it's mixed up. We have this kind of like tunnel vision, I think, when it comes to well, we're in 2019 and we understand whatever it was that Rollo wrote about in the Rational Male book, right? And so we take that and we go, gosh, it's so consciousness expanding, right? But we have to see that you have to understand that book could only be produced at this time. If I was to take that what I wrote there and I try to go through like a traditional publishing house, they would laugh at me and say, "Get the fuck, we're not going to deal with that," because that's misogynist stuff. Anything that's anti-feminist, misogynist. But that book exists now because of all the stuff that's happened up to now. And so I can take these dynamics that are universal dynamics. I was just looking in the chat here, and guys are saying, it's like the Bible. I'm like, well, it's not the Bible, but it is a living text, which is like the Bible, where you keep coming back to it to learn a different lesson about something else. In this case, I was trying to apply it to my mom and my dad's relationship. I'm like, how do these two people, these separate people, come together and create a kid, or much less two? And I thought about this. My dad was this very stable, very old books kind of guy. If you read my book, you know what I'm talking about. Like he's the old social contract guy. Like you go to work, you put in an honest hour, your honest day's pay, and you get an honest, paycheck at the end of the day, and you get a pension, and then you go and you retire in sunny Florida and you play golf until you die. That's the sort of the white American Anglo-Saxon dream for guys that has been around for a very long time. I prefer
fishing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fishing's a lot of fun.
See, yeah, well, I guess you could do that too, but that doesn't exist anymore. But the dynamics that get people together still exist. So when I talk about hypergamy, or I talk about just some of the fundamentals in the books, that applies all the way back to ancient Greece, even before that, to the 1950s when 60s when my parents got together, the 70s when we're all, having sex after going dancing at Studio 54 or some shit like that. What I mean? It's just the mechanics stay the same, but the context changes out. And so when I go back and I look at that and I look at the stories that were created during those times between like a man and a woman, I see the fundamental truths of that, just like you're saying with your family, with your brothers and stuff. You see that happening because you're aware now. It's like when we talk about the red pill lens, you can't unsee the what you're seeing. Like when guys want to sort of plug themselves back into the matrix, when they want to sort of ignore things, they don't want to, it's too much for them to accept. When guys want to talk about, it's the black pill, right? There is no black pill. There's only the abyss that you can't cross from going from the blue pill into the red pill. And once you're there, once you have become red pill aware, and once you understand intersexual dynamics, then from there you can apply that to other things. So we can talk about politics, we can talk about religion, we can talk about race, we can talk about how how does those mechanics, those functional mechanics I was just talking about, how do those apply to different contexts? So now it's not just about a linear context of time, but it's into different aspects of our life. Like we were just talking about the Gillette ad. Okay, why is that so triggering to guys who are red pill? Well, it's because we see this and we see the bullshit behind it. And the first thing I do is I go and I look into see, who was the director of it. Well, imagine that it's a radical feminist who was hired by Gillette, who hired a agency called Gray. Gray was just let go by the NFL.
If I can interject on the Gillette thing, I think what's interesting is that guys in the red pill, we see the Gillette ad and we can both get angry at it and break it down like you're doing and understand what went into it and why it exists.
And that is the most frustrating part of that.
Well, the other is I'm not threatened by it. And I've been accused by being threatened. I can be angry without being threatened.
The frustration that I have about the Gillette commercial is like me wanting to say, look, this is bullshit. And just look at all the events that led up to this. And then I see that in a bigger picture.
Let me throw some jet fuel on your argument here.
Okay.
So you guys in the red pill, and especially guys at your level, you're armed. The average guy right now, that Gillette thing is taken off. They're pissed off, but they don't have the weapons intellectually to break it down and analyze it. We do. Even the average guy in the red pill understands that shit. And that's I think the difference of taking the red pill. And that's like one way now it's applied outside of like immediate, how do I get laid or something. They can see this shitty Gillette ad and understand why it's fucked up and why it's bad for them and their life and everyone around them.
So I always have to deal with different sides of this because I'm all about the nuts and bolts. Okay. I'm all about how does the car go together? How does the mechanics work to
the praxeology?
The praxeology of it. I'm as I think it was Ryan or Carl says, I'm writing the Chilton manual for intersexual dynamics, right? So I look at that, but then I also can't ignore that there are organized forces that are actively fighting against us even being in this room together to even discuss this. And then this was part of my speech. I don't want to give away too much of my speech, but just coming together in one room with the 200 guys so we can talk about things like this, that is instantly misogyny. It's instantly hate speech. It's just the side of a crime so far. But when I see that, what frustrates me about that is that I see this as like, I remember in was it Roddy Piper with the glasses in them or They Live? Yeah, They Live. And you could see like all this stuff and you would take them off and you would put them back on. And it's like, I can't take the glasses off. I can't unsee. I can't see. And I think that when guys talk about it, I'm just finish up here. When I see guys talk about the black pill, I think what it is they want to take the glasses off, but they can't take the glasses off. And so all they're seeing is red pill truths all around them. And I do the same thing sometimes. Like when I see stuff like that, I'm beginning to see a much larger picture right now. This is why I wrote the gender war post, because I see the country sort of building up into what I wrote about in 2016. I wrote a post called "The First Female President" and just how dedicated everyone was to getting Hillary as the first female president. They didn't care if it was Hillary; they just want the first female president. And the same thing's happening right now. You've got five different women on the Democratic side who have all announced that they're going to run for president within the first 2 weeks of January of 2019. This is where the election cycle starts right here, and this is what I mean by that. Not a single man that I know of has declared that on the Democratic side that he's going to run against Trump because you can't because they want that female. Yeah.
Beto.
There's one.
Beto. Okay. Beto male.
So let's talk about the politics of red pill because we've got a couple of MAGA hats in here. I'm interested as a Canadian in the States right now, and it's like this shit show that I get to watch from my backyard porch. It's like I sit on my backyard porch and I got my barbecue done and I'm having a drink and I'm looking out over the yard and over the fence. There's like some crazy shit going on. Not that it's, a lot less crazy in Canada, but you guys have two political parties, right? Like for the main part, two major ones would get like 90% of the votes, right?
Yeah.
So Democrat, Republican, Democrats more liberal, more left-leaning, more socialist values, Republicans more conservative values, right?
I think most voters though are independent, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But they end up
Okay.
going, but they end up swinging either party come an election.
Yeah, to influence the direction of the country,
Yeah.
right? So my question would be like, what political value system? And we have libertarian, we have green stuff. Like, there's all kinds of like ideologies out there. So what political party would you say is best aligned with the intent of the red pill?
I'll just open this up and say that I don't consider myself a Republican so much, or conservative, or any of that stuff, or especially not a Democrat. Hell no. Never been a Democrat, proudly, never been a Democrat. But I will say I call myself a Ron Paul Republican and a solid, very, very strong Trump supporter. So I was one of the Ron Paul guys in 2009 and 2012. And then Trump came around, I eventually swung to Trump. I have supported libertarians and stuff at some point, at various points, but Ron Paul Republican and Trump supporter hardcore. And that's different, I think, than being a standard bearer Republican by a long shot, especially the old guard, the old establishment. Also, I like the Libertarian Party, but they never get their shit together for decades upon decades. That sucks. But yeah, that's my political philosophy, and the backbone is objectivism.
Do you think that the libertarian side has better ideas than the Republican side, or worse ideas?
I think the Republican Party is changing.
That are more aligned with the red pill. Like I'm trying to keep it connected.
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
red
yeah,
pill
yeah.
Values
So,
and intent.
I think the Republican Party right now is changing to be a lot better aligned with like the red pill and true ideas. Before they were just shit. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't have given them. In 2012, I couldn't give a shit less about Mitt Romney. That was the most boring, useless candidate I've ever seen in my life. And Obama was, no better. They're the same candidate, shit. But I would say that the red pill to me is truth. That's what the focus is fundamentally. And the truth of being a human being, especially a man, particularly a man, is freedom. So libertarianism is very focused on freedom, but with that party comes a lot of problems. The Republicans now, Trump, I think, is pushing them slowly. It's a beginning towards freedom. So the party got away from that for a long time, and that was shit. A long time ago, they were very focused on freedom. Conservatism used to mean freedom, or it was loosely in that direction. Then they got like completely off track over the past 80 years or something. So I would say the fundamental political principle is individual freedom. And that to me is very much in line with the red pill. And that's why now the red pill being apolitical, I think that was useful and it still is, but the political environment has gotten so fucking intense that you have to choose a side. And there's only one side at this point, the right-ish, that even cares about freedom. The left has thrown it out the window.
The problem with the left is that and it's not really a right-left continuum, and it's not even really a two-dimensional plane, but it's probably the best way to think of it is imagine if you get two axes. One, you've got economic freedom, and one, you've got financial freedom. And instead of being on its side, it's a diamond. You got 0 economic freedom, 0 financial freedom, and then 0 financial to 100% financial, 0 economic, or 0 personal freedom to 100 personal freedom. So you've got left and right, more economic freedom, more personal freedom, and more financial or economic freedom. But as you get towards the top, you have more of both overall. As you get towards the bottom, you have less. At the very bottom would be tyranny, authoritarianism. At the very top would be pure libertarianism. The Democrats aren't all the way to the left, and the Republicans aren't all the way to the right, because none of them are for absolute 0 economic freedom, and none of them are for absolute 0, personal freedom. They're somewhere, in the middle, or were somewhere in the middle towards the right and towards the left. And you got a little clump of voters that were right around there with a bunch of people that were in between that would swing either way. Problem is the Democrats, instead of being kind of middle left, used to be more liberal left, more overall freedom left, but they're moving not further left, but further down towards authoritarianism. Yeah. The left are becoming the fascists. They're accusing the right
other people of being, yeah.
And I've never really voted left or right. I've always thought, okay, if you got a politician, where does he fall on this grid? I don't care how far to the left or right he is. I care how far up or down he is. More or less freedom overall, or relative to the other candidates, will he move the average up or will he move
There you
the
go.
average down?
So you guys are saying basically the same thing. The closer to freedom, the closer
Yeah.
to the red pill.
And
The
Trump,
left has
Trump used
been
to be a Democrat,
plummeting,
for
though.
example, I think in the 90s,
Mhm.
for example. And a lot of people accused him during the campaign of being a liberal. And there's probably some truth to that. But like Drew's saying, he's pushing the country towards freedom, or at minimum, in my opinion, setting it up for more and more freedom over time.
So
He's busting shit
People-
up to make that happen.
people, for example, that saw some of our social posts today and said things like, you should take off that hat, you look stupid, or it makes you look stupid,
Yeah.
are basically implying because you support a stronger America and Donald
Yeah.
Trump's slogan,
Mhm.
you're dumb and you should be supporting their party leader.
Perception is projection. These
Yeah,
people
yeah.
are stupid as
So,
shit.
so can you? And these are people, by the way, that like follow my regular content. And I'm talking about a lot of red pill shit, so they obviously subscribe to what I have conversations about. So, I guess another question I have is: can you support democratic values here in the U.S. and be red pilled?
No.
I think that's going out the window pretty fast.
Yeah.
Well,
What do you
part of
mean
it
by
is-
that when you say democratic
Well,
values? What are those values?
What are the value? I think, yeah.
Well, the standard like democratic platform that I see anyway is the one that Hillary brought to the table, which was just more of what the left keeps autistically screeching about all the time, right? So, these guys that are saying, well, Trump's an idiot. Well, you really only got two choices. You're either a Republican or you're a Democrat. So that tells me that you're more of a lefty. You like the lefty values, but you claim to be red pilled. So how do you be red pilled but support a party's value system that is destructive to masculinity, that supports retarded Gillette commercials about men being toxic, that supports the APA's ruling on all like traditional masculinity being toxic?
The left is responsible for most of the problems that the families are having right now.
100%.
The unintended consequences of increased social welfare are that women now, again, hypergamy in action, probably see that they can have the government as their baby daddy.
Well, the
instead
government,
of the father.
then becomes the head of the household,
Yeah.
and the man is then replaced.
Yeah.
And that's not red pilled.
In Black families, other minority families, the instance of a single parent, usually, just a mother in a household, has gone up consistently since social welfare programs. have
Well,
been
you
instituted.
can even set that aside, and like the general stat throughout, I think it's North America, if not, it's just the States, but it's something like 43% of boys are raised without a biological father in place.
It's insane. And
Right.
that couldn't happen. It could not, it would very rarely happen if we didn't have these social welfare
programs,
programs
right?
in place. Because
Replace the father with the state.
yeah, women before they would have to replace the father with another man.
Right.
And before government welfare programs, which are terribly inefficient, and there's no incentive for people to do better because, if you got private charity, you can say, okay, well, Sue's husband was killed in an accident at work. Well, she's got these kids. Let's all help her out. Versus, well, Bob got fired from his job for drinking again and not showing up. Fuck this guy. It's been the third time this happened. So
hasn't
the
government
is gonna give it
size
to an
per
enemies.
capita exploded like over the last 100 years?
I'm sorry.
Probably.
Like the amount of government workers and employees and representatives and senators and
It's ridiculous. Our
Right.
government
Let's pause
should
and
be
get
a
Elliot in here. Elliot?
tiny size.
Well, I have a question. Yeah, that is a great segue. What do you guys think about not needing government?
I don't need government. They don't do anything.
very
Because what we're
small
talking
amount.
about is
All they do is milk my paycheck. They take half my shit. It's like an ex-wife.
You take
So-
your tax rate and you'd be that more effective.
Like I'm trying to say, non-compliance is our greatest gift.
If everybody stopped
So-
paying their taxes immediately, the IRS could not possibly get everyone for it. They
Yeah.
couldn't.
That's a
Look
great
at what
point.
John McAfee is doing right now. Literally, if every single person in the United States that pays taxes,
Picked a day and said, F you, I'm
just said,
not paying
yeah.
tax anymore.
fuck
The problem
Fuck
is
you,
that you don't
IRS,
have
and
that
didn't-
control
that
as an
would be it.
employee because your taxes are taken from the
right.
employer,
work for yourself.
mandated legally through the system to rob you before the money even hits your bank account. That's how much of a criminal the government is. They rob your ass before the money that you work for even hits your bank account.
We do need government, but we need so much less of it than we have. We need government for a few basic things. Ultimately, the only purpose of government is to have a objective way to defend individual rights, including your property rights and your right to life, to provide for the national defense, and then to enforce contracts, because without that, businesses couldn't operate. Anything else is a complete waste of money. It's not constitutional, and it should be left to local, city, and state level. And the reason for that is anything else, if it's left to the cities and states, because we're not just one big country. We are a union of states. People have the option to move from one city to the next or one state to the next. So states and cities have to compete for citizens and taxes. They have to be efficient and they have to provide value for what they offer. But on the federal level,
Yeah, we were talking about city states before when we were driving out to the gun range. I think we talked about it too.
we could cut it back to a tiny sliver of what it is, though, and we'd all be better for it.
We had an old speaker, Greg Swan, Sock and I know him pretty well. He was the first man I heard say that the smallest polity, the smallest political entity is the family.
Smallest form of government's two
Smallest
people.
form of government's two people.
Yep.
Or
Two
even
people.
in a family,
It's a relationship.
And what comes to mind there is, what's the topic of the show we had the day here, and of course, upcoming event, patriarchy.
Yeah, if you
Male-
vote for
male-led
big
family.
government, you're basically voting to be replaced.
You're voting to be out alpha.
Yeah, you're
by
voting to
an
be
alpha
out
you are not-
alpha by a big ass entity that just wants to keep growing and consuming and becoming a larger Borg. And it's like the more people that it can have reliant on its monthly subsidies and food stamps and programs, the greater its voting base will be for its policies and growth and enlargement of the government in the future, right?
You know who
Have you
votes
guys
for
ever
bigger
heard
governments?
of voluntarism?
We know
Oh yeah.
And what do you think about
people that
voluntarism?
need big governments, which is a lot of people because they don't want to take ownership for their own lives a lot of the time.
Voluntarism, I'm familiar with it. I don't think the rest of the panel is.
Mhm.
Something I looked at a while ago. I think Ron Paul was a big fan of it.
Mhm.
I had a theory once that if you could legally mandate voluntarism, if that makes any sense, which
Right.
sounds ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the fundamental problems, we're talking about taxes and what a fucking ripoff they are. Half of it's taken out of your paycheck if you have an employer before you even touch it. You don't even have the ability to not pay it. That's how crazy it is now, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the fundamental problems with government right now, and taxation specifically as a funding method, right? Government is 100% taxpayer funded, is that it's violently enforced.
Mhm.
It is not like in America, when you file your taxes, the federal government, you have an option like a check mark to pay for the presidential campaign. You can donate like $4 or something, whatever little amount it is.
Right.
If
But-
people chose where all of it went, most of the
Exactly.
stuff we don't need would be gone.
Well, here's the issue too: is that if you don't pay it, it's criminal. You will literally have to pay it at gunpoint or go to jail. IRS has 4,000 AR-15s or something. They have
They
thousands
keep
and
listening.
thousands
Yeah,
of guns.
it's amazing because they have
Yeah.
to serve in a whole
Yeah,
series
yeah.
of things. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're right. And
It's
the
like
amount-
why are you? I'm for government, like a very.
Why
very
does the
limited
IRS
amount.
need 1,000 AR-15s?
They have more than that, and they have millions.
People
of
wouldn't
round
pay them
names.
otherwise.
Yeah. and
Do they
so-
actually force people to pay taxes at gunpoint, like you suggested? They do that?
They'll arrest you.
I've actually known some people
Yeah.
that have been in situations where the IRS pursued them for a while for not paying taxes.
Mhm.
And they ignored summons, they ignored court orders and all these things, saying basically, you know what, I really don't have to pay you any of this. And their arguments are something against improper ratification of the amendment that allowed for the IRS to do this for the
Oh, yeah,
income
yeah, yeah.
tax. And these people outright resisted and ended up in an armed standoff. I remember
Yeah.
getting emails from somebody at a house where they were basically in an armed standoff. Of course, this stuff doesn't make the news.
Over
They don't want people to
taxes.
know that. Yeah. And I told them, I said, don't fucking email me in the middle of this stuff.
Well, no,
I said, don't,
That
yeah,
went
don't
straight to the
fucking
FBI.
send this to me right
Like,
now.
So most
Yeah, if
men
you've ever-
want, a very limited amount of government, but if you
Yeah.
don't pay it, you won't go to jail for not paying your taxes. You're gonna go to jail. At
That's not
gunpoint
freedom,
or
man.
die. That's right.
That's
You're
not
damn right.
freedom. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a slave to the system when they steal the money for taxes before it even hits your bank account.
It's a very advanced form of slavery.
It
You
is.
have,
No,
you
we-
have
yeah.
this car.
Yeah.
We have a Lamborghini literally in the driveway.
Yeah.
Do we feel like slaves? No. But if we don't pay our taxes in a long enough time span, you will have law enforcement show up at your house with guns. And
Yeah.
if you defend yourself, they'll put a bullet right between your fucking eyes. They will kill you.
Wow.
Yeah.
And a big part of the problem is that a lot of the people aren't paying taxes. They're still benefiting from the taxes. And for some reason, they're still being given a say
Yeah.
in who gets elected.
Yeah.
If you're not
yeah.
paying in, you
Yeah.
should not have a say at all
Well,
in who and how it's being spent.
voting
voting
rights
here
in the
used to exist based on property ownership, didn't it?
Right.
That's
Like
the
you
only
could
way
cast a
it
vote
should
if
be.
you had done something with your life and obtained property. Then your voice mattered. Until then, you were a nobody, and you just needed to toe the line.
If we went back to that, it would solve two things. You should either have to own land in the country to be able to vote in it, or have served honorably in the military. If you haven't done one of those two things, you should have zero say in who gets elected. If we were to limit it to just those people, the vast majority of problems that we have with our government right now would go away. And right now, a bunch of people watching are probably furious about me saying this. That's because you are the people that are benefiting from stealing our money, a big part of our paycheck.
Yeah, the big problem
If
is
you're
that
mad,
the
you're
vast
part of the
majority of the
problem.
people that make the decisions are the people that are milking the people that are paying the
Right.
taxes that
It's
don't
like-
get to benefit from the decisions that they make.
Let me pause this and bump it to Rollo.
Yeah.
So Rollo, someone put in the chat that like if you're red pilled, you're probably not a socialist. That's not 100%. So my question is, obviously there are dudes, and I know some. I know one, me and Sock do in Orlando. This guy's like basically a communist, hardcore Bernie Sanders fan, all that. This guy gets laid. He understands women.
Yep.
So what do you think, Rollo, about the guys who have been able to in my opinion, compartmentalize or kind of piece down? They understand truth and intersexual dynamics, but when it comes to freedom and personal responsibility, it's like rationality got completely turned
Well,
off.
There are guys who are going to be the quote unquote natural, no matter what.
Okay.
And that's going to be above whatever your political affiliation is. It's going to be whatever you think of sociologically. You're going to grow up in such a way, and you know what? You're not going to care. You don't have any incentives to really even think about why what you're doing is working for you. Okay. Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay. It's the same thing for very gorgeous, pretty girls, right? They don't have the incentive to have the insight to really look inside themselves and say, why is it what I'm doing is working? And why am I not happy? Or how can I fix the problem? Because they're just simply not motivated to do something like that. So you're going to have people that are always going to be naturals who are going to say, you know what, I get it from, a very early age. And there's other guys who have to learn and have to struggle with it and have to fight for it. For some people, it comes easier. Some people, it's not, because you have to get over a lot of personal convictions, maybe whatever you've been conditioned to. That's why we call blue pill conditioning, because from a very early age, I've always said we raise our boys as if they're defective girls. Well, those defective girls also grow up to vote. Okay, those defective girls
They cast a lot of votes.
yeah, who have always been told you need to make womankind, or mommy, or your teacher, or whoever, you have to make them your first order of thinking. And that's where you get guys who are like, don't worry, honey, I'll take your last name instead of you taking my last name. Okay, that's when you get that kind of thing. But see here, those guys are just as clueless as the natural guy is, because a guy who's like who's been brought up to take somebody like, say, Terry Crews for a minute.
Good
right?
example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terry Crews.
Who's Terry Crews?
He's an athlete, right? Or
Yeah,
he's
it's a
a-
football player, yeah.
Oh, he's a big bald
yeah.
black guy.
He was a
He's
black
like-
guy that was in the Gillette commercial.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I know
Yeah.
Terry Crews is.
And he is
Yeah.
essentially
He was in that Senate hearing.
he is a tool of his militant feminist wife. And he'll go on all of these talk shows and go, we need to, he'll say, he'll sit before Congress, I think, and he'll say,
First Me Too movement.
Yeah, for the
Male
Me
step
Too-
forward
for the
in
Me
the
Too movement.
athletic
So he'll
male
get
world
behind
saying
that.
I was sexually harassed and
because they
assaulted.
see that as a means to solving their reproductive problems. Okay. If I get behind Me Too, I'm going to be able to breed. The women are going to like me enough, because I'm identifying with women, because that's what we tell all our boys is you need to identify with the feminine.
Be their
You
friend.
need to get in touch with your emotional side and your feminine side. So that's what they do. But for the guys that you're talking about, there are always going to be alphas and betas within different contexts.
Within any tribe.
Yeah, within any tribe. So you can go into the most hardcore socialist groups that you can imagine, and there's going to be an alpha there who's nailing all the chicks in that thing, because once again, you take the mechanics of everything that I've written about and you put that into a different context. You put that into a social context. The mechanics don't change. The only thing that changes is the paradigm, is the context of that. So whether it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or whatever, and her Democratic Socialists. I'll guarantee you, there's like she can probably like point out 2 or 3 guys that she's probably nailed within her own political party because she was hot for that guy. Why? Because those are the alpha dudes, right? Those are the guys that she wants to have sex with.
By the
And
way,
those are guys that don't.
she
So
calls her boyfriend her partner.
yeah. Have you seen pictures of the guy?
No, I can imagine.
Go look up pictures of the guy. He is exactly what you would imagine.
I want to ruin my night.
Exactly what you would imagine him to be. Exactly what you.
I had a
And now
feminist
everybody in
girlfriend
the
once. She
call's
called
gonna
me a
go
partner.
Google this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We got a $10 super chat
Yeah.
Yeah, hit
from
that.
Redman Anon. I've seen this guy before. It's about RSD Tyler. Isn't RSD Tyler red pill though? He does talk about lover provider dynamic.
Nope.
Talks about the Disney fantasy. Talks about looks are just a part of it, etc. Guess I'm not sure how he is purple pill. Rolo, Rich, anybody want this?
I'll let Rolla hit it.
I
unless
think
somebody else
I
wants
think
that.
I think a guy like Owen, a guy like Mystery, and a guy like I mean, remember this is this old guard pickup artistry guys. That's what they're. They've moved over into really success porn is what they've done. They've moved over into the Tony Robbins. Let's get up and bounce around the room, and they don't really have much substance to them. They don't have nuts and bolts. They have a lot of hype and they have a lot of feel good. That's fine, but they don't. At the end of the day, it's kind of like a big nothing burger, is what it ends up being. Is he red pill? Is he blue pill? I don't think so. For the same reason, I don't think Mystery is either. Mystery is still to this day suicidal because he's still trying to make the red pill work for his blue pill fantasies. So he can learn, just like we were talking about this, studly socialist guy. He learns how to do one thing really good, but he doesn't understand how the car runs. He can drive the car, but he couldn't rebuild the car. He couldn't put it back together. If something went wrong with the car, he couldn't rebuild it. You have to take it somewhere and you get rid of that car and get another car, right?
Yeah, you even saw Neil Strauss write about this. In the game.
Neil Strauss is another guy who at one point understands game. Just because you understand game does not make you red pill, and it does not make you or blue pill for that matter.
Doesn't even mean you understand women.
Yeah, it's those two things are mutually exclusive. So just because you are very good at scripts, just because you are very good at calibrating. That's a big one. You're good at calibrating. You're good at so you have high social intelligence. That simply that's great. You know how to get laid, but you don't know how to live with women. You don't know how to look for dangerous women. You don't know how to deal with a borderline personality. You don't know those kinds of things because you've never had the incentive to really actually study those things. I think that if you look at the lifestyles, the actual real lifestyles of somebody like Owen, you'll see just how blue pill they are. Like, for instance, Prince Harry. Everybody jumped all down my ass for when I said Prince Harry is blue pill and he's going to end up probably putting a noose around his neck because he's blue pill and because he's doing everything I would expect a blue pill guy to do in a relationship that he is in. And she is owning his ass and isolating him and doing everything possible to keep
Very
him
publicly too.
She's very
all within the first
public.
year.
Yeah,
I mean,
very
there was
public.
no.
I'm
one of the
going to
most
bet he
published
goes with
nerds
sleeping
ever.
pills.
Well, because maybe. But then people will say, well, he used to fly helicopters and he was a Marine, a Royal Marine or something like that. And I'm like, that I know so many guys in the military that I would also say are very, very blue pill. So just because you know how to get laid does not necessarily mean that you know the nature of women and you know what can help you live a better life by knowing like intersexual dynamics and the mechanics that go with that. So I think that maybe I'm not saying maybe he does or maybe he doesn't. I haven't seen it. Okay. I haven't seen it from him at all. All I see a lot of practice and no theory. And then I see a lot of guys who are all theory and no practice. I always say that the red pill and game are like symbiotic. Okay. Without game, without practice, without going out there and doing it and practicing what you've learned from the red pill, all you are is a robot. You're what Neil Strauss would call a social robot, right? If all you're about is theory and you're just sitting in here, you're just being a keyboard jockey the whole time, you're afraid to go outside. All you're doing is you're just living with theory all the time.
When I first found your website in 2015, before I got properly introduced to it like a year and a half later, I had one of my employees at the time looking for websites like yours, like new manosphere content, because I was frustrated that the pickup community had completely failed to develop a unifying theory of any degree. It was just the pickup community in 2015 was like this like leftover mishmash of shit from the 2000s.
And they didn't know why it worked.
Yeah, no one knew why
so
anything
you
worked.
see guys do really stupid shit, try, fail,
Well,
and then it works, and they don't know
and
why.
You want to know how I wrote The Rational Males? Because I was looking at forums like SoSuave and forums like Alt Fast Seduction and Mystery Method and stuff. And I was looking at that. In fact, that's what prompted me to actually get into it, because I was studying behavioral psychology at the time. And I go, what he's talking about right there is operant conditioning, right? Or it's it's positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. I'm looking at all. They don't understand why it works, but they don't care if it again, just turn the TV on, and as long as the TV turns on, that's all they care about. They don't want to rebuild the TV. I wanted to rebuild the TV.
I love Elliot's thing. He said girls just want to take selfies and charge their phone.
Right.
Yeah, the selfies thing I got. The charge.
They don't want to rebuild the phone. They don't want to code.
Charge.
Yeah.
Charge it and post a selfie.
Yeah.
I do want to get back to this one part though. I understand like the principal question you're asking is which political ideology most closely aligns with what we see as red pill awareness. Okay. Obviously that's not a militant, progressive, liberal. I don't even call it liberal, because if you talk to like somebody like Dave Rubin, he will say that he is a classical liberal, right? Which is what I was for a very long time, but I voted for Trump, right? I voted for Obama in the 2 years that he was there, but I'm one of Jack Murphy's Democrats to deplorables, and now I've switched because the party left me. I didn't leave the party, right? And I see this now, and I look at it and I go, well, as to who I am today, who best reflects those? Well, I didn't vote for Trump. I voted against Hillary because I didn't want her in there. And if there's any woman that runs this year, she's not getting my vote either, just simply because I don't see a woman.
Dangerous.
Yeah, it's too dangerous, and I don't see a woman, because I believe in the sisterhood of Morales, right?
Yeah.
I believe that women will never vote against their own interests. And you listen to Turd Flinging Monkey, he says this all the time, which is, women will only ever vote for themselves. They will only ever vote for the sisterhood, no matter what that is. And if they can get free stuff, they're going to get free stuff.
So what do you think about that notion that the MGTOWs talk about, where they say just take women's voting rights away? I mean, I think as a solution, it would probably work, but how would you even go about that?
I agree. I 100% think.
How is that a solution?
When guys say that, they go, yeah, are you ready to take women's vote rights away? Yes, I am. How are we going to do that?
Yeah,
Tell me how we're going to do that.
Like, what's the plan?
You have to have
Has anybody presented a plan?
Show me what you're
Monster
doing.
societal
I've
collapse.
done this once before when Drew mentioned this at the RedMag group at 21Con. So the MGTOWs jumped to that as an easy solution, and I'm actually very skeptical. Obviously, like, how are you going to do that? Second of all, if you actually manage to pull that off, the fucking backlash you would inspire with that would be like hell. Like, to me, that would.
Oh, I agree. Yeah,
like, it's just
1000%.
In the
to me,
short
it's
term,
useless.
but as society rapidly improved over the following decades, people would be like, yeah,
Yeah, but they would have to
idea.
hold for decades to see the improvement.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well,
I'm
it
also
can't be
skeptical,
done.
though, that it's
You can't keep
fundamental.
swinging the pendulum back and forth every 4 years and take away their
Yeah.
votes.
It
No,
couldn't be
they
done.
keep
It'd have
coming
to be
back that.
indirect.
They keep coming back to that, and they keep throwing that out there, like let's take women's rights away. Okay, well, again, of course, what we say, go ahead and
Voting's
do
not
that.
a right, though; it's a privilege.
Well, okay, but
So
exactly.
Well, if you
I
make
think
the
it's important
privilege
to
align with
phrase it
ownership
like
of
that.
I see
property,
that,
then
but-
you'd
we
have some better
can't and
choices.
shouldn't
But see-
take
but see-
anybody's rights.
But see, that is
voting isn't the right.
to say let's take women's rights away. That is a cop out. And you know why that's a cop out? Because they know that
never
there's
gonna happen.
two choices.
I think
We take away women's rights, or the whole system goes to hell.
Mhm.
Right? What sounds better to you?
Well, I think they want the
Taking
whole
away,
system to
taking
go
away
out.
women's rights, right?
Yeah.
But guess what's going to really happen? The whole system's going to go to hell.
Yes.
That's what they're trying to avoid
Right.
by saying let's take away women's rights. No, we're fucked. That's
Yes.
it. Okay, we are totally fucked. And you're not going to take women's rights away because there are more betas out there that will fight you on that than anything. That women won't even have to fight the battle.
The
Men will fight the
allies.
battle for them.
85% men are betas.
There's
Yes.
a lot of
Yeah.
thirsty, dehydrated white knights out there that would fight that battle happily
I'm
for
also-
my lady.
Yeah, I'm also so Drew May mentioned earlier, like owning property, serving the military,
Honorably.
honorably,
Yeah.
contributing to the tax base. So actually, I've seen Black Pigeon Speaks do some awesome videos and Stefan Molyneux videos on gender, voting patterns, women voting for socialism, men voting for freedom. The Libertarian
Yes.
Party in America is like 70% male. Independent of gender, though, I'm very skeptical that the fundamental problem is actually gender and biology. I think it's more something like owning property, or even something as simple as making voting contingent on contributing $1 of tax every
Mm.
year. If you contribute $1 positive, net positive to the tax base,
So you get to cast a vote.
You can
Recipient of free
Recipient,
shit, you don't
right,
get to
yeah.
vote.
Even
And
$1
government
to negative,
employees.
Exactly. If you're on welfare, if you're on food stamps,
Well, that's
no
a
vote.
step closer in the right direction, I think, because you're going to have people cast
Mhm.
votes
And I
that
think that would
support
push
a
the
And it's
strong
aligning
country.
their interests with what their voting patterns
Yeah.
are.
Exactly.
And so,
Yeah.
for example, Mary Frances was a stand-up liberal. But when you start having her interest in the family, realizing how much of my paycheck is taken out going somewhere else, she saw that number and was like, what the fuck?
Mm.
I mean, like, and she's like, how often does this happen? Is that month? I mean, no, that's bi-monthly. That's happening twice a month.
Well, this is a red pill thing that's talked about quite a bit, more on the boards and stuff.
Right.
That women who get married and have babies, all of a sudden they vote conservative and shit.
Right.
It's like this
Yeah.
rapid.
If
they
they-
they don't want to
And so,
Yeah,
if,
that
and
is-
instead of
because
saying
security
Probably
taking
not
their
a lot of
vote,
single mommy
how
votes
do you put
for
value
conservative
back in the family
voting
structure
practices, right?
that's red pilled based, that respects men, respects masculinity, respects the historical behavioral patterns of human creatures, both male and female, and make that work in a civilized society such as ours? And we still haven't figured that out.
Well, and I'll tell you, I was actually, when we were on the boat, I was telling Elliot this, is that women tend to be more collectivist. They tend to be more socialist.
Mhm.
Okay. For lack of a better term, let's just say collectivist here, because I don't want to apply politics to it just yet, but they're more collectivist. Men tend to be more merit-based, i.e. more capitalist, more focused on your performance, because we have a burden of performance. Women do not have that burden of performance. They just are. Men must become.
We're focused on the
right?
individual.
Right. Well, the reason for that, and I was telling him, is that
We like to compete and measure as well.
yeah, we do. Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing is women, the way that they evolved was they had to stay, we were evolved from hunter-gatherer societies, and women stayed together, and they had to rely on each other. They had to communicate with each other, where the men were off, trying to bring back a big old woolly mammoth or some shit. Okay. So they would have to be there, they would have to cooperate and organize, because they had to go collect. They had to, okay, you're going to take care of the babies. You're going to go and do this. Oh, it looks like you're going to be fertile pretty soon. I got a great guy for you. That, there's a matchmaker thing. There's the reproductive aspects of it. But all of that comes down to wanting to have an equal base for everybody that is in the woman tribe, whereas the man tribe is out doing something differently. So what happens is they end up being like one of these experiments I was telling him about, is they have done these experiments where they will take a certain amount of money or resources, and they will allot it to a group of women, and they will see how they go, and they distribute it. And women will almost uniquely just go and distribute money or whatever the resource is equally amongst that group.
Holy shit.
Whereas when you do the same thing,
Who's got a huge super
Woo!
chat?
We'll get to it. When you do the same thing with men will take those resources and they will dish it out merit-wise. You did a better job. You brought down the woolly mammoth. You threw the spear. You carried it back. They will give out just enough as based on whatever your performance is. And that, when we see societies that are more feminine primary, when they are gynocratic, when they are what I would call the female primary social order, which is what we are in now. We have been in this since the sexual revolution. That is why you see us leaning really towards leftist and left-leaning socialist collectivists, like Alexandria Cortez, right? Social democrat. That's why you're looking at socialist democrat. That's why you're seeing this more socialist thing. Everything you guys have been talking about distributing and taxes and voting and stuff like that. The reason we've been discussing this is because we have standardized on that collectivist female style government. And this is also what happens when women get into male spaces. They will turn it from a merit-based space, which is a male space, into a female-based space, which is based on like, you get one and you get one and you get one, and we're all going to be collectivists and we're all going to be equal about it. And that's what fucks up big companies when they get into work culture. When work culture shifts from being primarily male over to primarily female, it fucks up the dynamic. And that's why you see companies' work culture completely change when it's primarily women. So that's something to think about, because right now I see that one of the reasons that we have the resistance, we have the women's march and all this other shit that's going on right now.
Yeah.
What is that? They're all wearing the same uniform. They're all wearing the same pink hat, and they all carry the same placards, and they all look alike. Okay. Because that is that collectivist mentality for them. So you want to get to that chat?
Yeah, let's get to that chat in a second. But Elliot, you made some controversial decisions in your business with the events lately. I don't know how long, a few months ago or whatever it was, you actually stopped letting women into your events.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about why that was and how that because this sounds very related. The
Mhm.
dynamics have changed. for
Chris
that.
Von Erich, thank you very much for that $60 super chat.
Yeah, man. We'll get to the super chats in a second. We'll read them out.
Well, the main thing was that the men were distracted.
Yeah.
They couldn't help but be distracted. So when there were women there, they would virtue signal.
Yeah.
Yes.
How, be that guy that gets the attention from the girl.
I'm not like these other guys.
And it was a lot of, I was actually a little ashamed. It was a lot of beta activity, a lot of beta behavior.
Cringe,
We're
yeah.
working very cringy. We're working together to make ourselves stronger versions of ourselves. But then here I see them, following the bait, biting the apple, bowing down, kowtowing, and being beta with the girls. And and I saw the women, they would take advantage of that. They enjoyed that, and we started getting women that I think were coming for that. They realized they're going to be, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, you just created a market.
Yeah. And so,
A niche.
I decided to allow women in first because I recognized that it would bring more men. That was my mindset. Right?
And it
If
worked.
we bring girls, more guys will come.
Yeah.
And it was doing really well, but it didn't take long for me to see the flaw in that. That was a mistake that I made, particularly when we have men that are making bad decisions, with these women that are showing up. So in order to do the work that men got to do, we got to create a space that's for men. We can't do this in a collectivist way with women. We're not ourselves. It doesn't matter who you are, how strong you try to be. When there's a woman in the room, there's a shift in behavior. We've been conditioned that way. And so the big decision has been to, work exclusively with men. Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised to hear that. I didn't know that. It was pretty cool to hear that.
That's
You made
impressive.
a male space.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, how do you develop
Yeah.
a uniqueness and celebrate that uniqueness and develop it when you have to include the other parties?
Right.
You're watering it down. You're not able to actually foment the
Mhm.
elements that actually create that uniqueness.
But you look, women have all their kinds of safe
Yeah, right,
spaces.
right.
They're creating them
You're
all over the place.
Right.
And men leave them alone. We don't see men trying to be Girl Scouts. But it's great. Girls, go. Do your thing. But we have this encroach upon space that's been created for men. Boy Scouts don't exist any longer
I
because
think you mean scouts.
Scouts don't exist anymore because girls need to be a part of it. And I think we've forgotten how to be with one another outside of the, drinking beer and telling jokes sort of space. That's cool and that's great. But we learned under pressure. We learned about one another under pressure. Anybody who's played football or is in the military, you understand that those men become family, not because they like each other, not because they're friendly with one another. In fact, we rib each other and give each
Well,
other
there
a
were
hard
guys I
time, and
served
that's
with
great.
that I loved.
Because we're testing what kind of men are around, and it becomes an order. That's why the order of men. It's men create an order,
A hierarchy.
right?
Yeah.
Order,
Mhm.
and so I think it's super important.
You talk about the culture of steel.
So hang on. I
yeah,
got to
yeah.
hit some super chats here.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're
sorry.
going to shut
Got
down.
it.
We got first the $5 one real quick. Fimon Min. He said earlier, just look at the Amish and the Muslim no-go zones in Europe. That's how you take away women's rights. It's happening right now. We also got a huge super chat from Chris Von Erich and $60. Thanks, man. It's one of the biggest I've ever seen on Redman Group. You men are the voices that need to heard. I am proud to support the content, and my goal is to one day speak at 21 Convention. Fuck yeah, man. Thank you.
And by the way you do that is you start broadcasting your own story.
Show us what you
Yeah.
Show us,
Yeah.
show us what you got. Get in the ring. Say what you got to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Build. It's a hierarchy. Exactly. Elliot was just talking about order and hierarchy. The speakers. I'm building a hierarchy of speakers and content and ideas and brands. These men have built themselves into that process by producing content, whether it's a blog, a YouTube channel, a book, a blog, or YouTube, all this stuff. That's how exactly Rich said. Build the content. Demonstrate what you can do. That's how you get here. Next one is from Conk. It's a $10 one. Thank you.
Conk's awesome. He's always around.
Yeah.
He's on all of ours.
Rollo, women vote for the sisterhood loyalty, but it all goes to shit when it's individual mate competition. Women sexually intimidated by other women will go no holds barred. Yeah, he's right.
Female
Yeah.
to female
The
to female
knives come out.
competitions.
Yeah,
are
there
incredible.
is. But I mean, when it
Intersex.
comes to like the oppression Olympics, right? Whenever that's why I always talk about the sisterhood as it transcends religion. It transcends politics. It transcends race. Okay, if you're a woman, then it's like, hey, sister.
It's his own mental
Yeah.
point of origin itself. Right?
Yeah, in a sense, but you have that. What he's talking about when there's, of course, there's intersexual competition all over the place, but that's within that group. When that group is attacked from the outside, that's when they sort of circle
The Borg
circle the
enables.
wagons. Yeah.
Yeah. I missed one super chat here from Ken Wilder, 1999. Thank you, sir. If women's rights aren't repealed, then at what point will this massive shit test end? I only care because feminism is corrupting every facet of the West. I agree. Must we be invaded to realize our failure, or until everything fails?
I think the shit needs to hit the fan. We need a full-on reset. Like it's like when your computer freezes up and it's not working properly.
Sweden is
You need a
probably going to be one of the
reset.
tests.
It's
Also,
already
Yeah.
failed.
it's not a right. Voting is not a right. Voting ought to be considered a privilege. And I think it's important that we phrase it as that, because when you start
Yeah.
talking about taking away rights, that's
It was designed as
That's
a
not-
as a function like jury duty in the origins of America anyway, up till
Yeah.
whenever the 1800s or whatever that changed.
it should be considered a privilege. It's something that you should have to earn. Rights are inherent. You just by virtue of being a living human, you have rights. But voting is something that you should not have a say if you don't have skin in the game.
Yeah.
If you're not part of the risk, it's a privilege that comes with that. It has to be earned. And I think it's absolutely essential that we stop saying the right to vote
Yeah.
and call it
Right.
voting privileges.
Well, it used to come with responsibility too. It was intimately tied to that.
It
until-
should never
You-
have changed.
You have just described exactly what I was saying about the differences between how women govern and how men govern. When women are together and they're organizing,
Yeah.
again, they are socialist, and everybody
Everybody
voting
has a
for
voice.
women is a right. Everybody gets to do that. Voting for men is a privilege that you get if you perform something, if you do something, if you throw in, if you're actually contributing to the greater good of that group. Whereas
You
women,
bear
it's,
responsibility.
and the MGTOW's got this one right too. Credit where it's due. It's like they will never vote against their own capacity to vote. They're never going to vote against or vote for something that you're talking about right now. We're never going to go back to that merit-based version of voting because we live in a feminine primary social order.
I have a question. Do you guys think that we're at the point of no return?
I don't.
No.
So
Like,
I have a.
can this
I
be
like the-
fixed?
Yeah, I like what you said a minute ago, because you said the shit needs to hit the fan. And in most instances or the views of that, I would kind of agree. But I think there's one out, and that, well, fundamentally, Ron Paul used to say, for example, in running in 2008, 2012, that tyranny sows the seeds of its own destruction. Tyranny, evil, all these things. So in my opinion, the presidency of the United States, one of the three branches of government, executive, legislative, and judicial, the presidency has become like superpowered over the past like 50, 60 years. It's gotten really out of control. And with guys like Bill Clinton and George Bush and these globalist puppets that just do what they're told, that's a big fucking problem. But I think now what we're seeing with Trump is the minute you get a real American who does whatever the fuck he wants, when the fuck he wants, in that super powered executive position, he's literally the CEO of the country, of the federal government. That, I think, is what we're seeing. We're in the middle of a revolution, in my opinion.
Well, it sounds like he's
Peaceful
gearing up
revolution.
to build a wall anyway by declaring it a national
Yeah.
emergency.
I mean,
right?
look, it's not just the wall.
It's
It's
gotta
everything he's done since he's gone in office. The presidency was overpowered, and the globalists, shit
Overpowered
lords-
by the globalists.
Yeah. They did it on purpose to
Yeah.
control everything else. But now that's the wheels have fallen off, and they're fucking mainstream media's freaking out, mainstream culture's freaking out, because you have someone in a position to actually do something.
But is that enough?
It might be.
Does he have enough time to actually accomplish what he was hoping to accomplish?
We're gonna find out.
All right, people give me shit all the time for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Back in, 1847 is when Seneca Falls happened. That's when we decided that, or women decided that they were going to have feminism, right? They came out with the Articles of Feminism. It's Seneca, I forget the lady who wrote it on. I've always said this, is that there were never any waves of feminism. There has always been one kind of feminism. It has always been a hate movement, and it has also been a supremacism movement. It's always been a push for more and more. When everybody asks you what do women want, the answer is always more. Okay. And so if you look at this from like 1847, then feminism is interrupted by, let's see, the Civil War in the 1860s. Then again, feminism is interrupted by World War I. And feminism gets up, and it's interrupted by World War II. And then finally, when we get into the 60s, 1960s, we have hormonal birth control, and we basically have handed over the birthing process. The human reproductive process is in the 100% authority control of women right now. You guys will say, well, you can wrap your dick up with a condom and you have to take some responsibility for that. Yeah, but the thing is once that woman is pregnant, all of your rights cease. Okay, you have no control over really the rest of your life. Whatever she wants to do, she's going to do. Whether you want to keep that kid or you don't want to have that kid, she has that right. And look at what has happened since we have unfettered hypergamy. Since we have given women that right, we've also unfettered hypergamy by saying, don't worry, ladies. Now, if you have sex, you don't have to worry about getting pregnant all the time. All you got to do is take this little pill, and you'll be good, right? So since then, since the sexual revolution, what have we seen happen? We have seen.
Are they trying to give those pills to men now and
No,
lower their?
No. Yeah, you will not.
Apparently this pill's
They are. Well, here's the thing, real quick.
I had a guy telling me that like we spend more money on on abortion or something like that rather than spending money on birth control for men.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. But
I understand it's more than the space program.
Yeah, well, look at what we've done though. So
Comparable.
More than the
Yeah,
space
more than
program.
the space
we have
program. Yeah.
free
On
legal
abortions.
abortion, and now abortions
Wow.
we can have abortions right up to 60 seconds before the baby is born.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
We
we
shouldn't
shouldn't
be
be
paying
paying
for
for that
any
just got
of it.
released this week,
Yeah,
right?
all that. But see, look at all the things that have happened since
Like,
we
that's
have
profound, man.
Unfettered hypergamy
sick.
is exactly
Sick.
as a result of that.
Yeah. Dude,
That's
They are
fucking
working
terrible.
on a
Did you hear
male
about that?
pill.
Yeah.
They're working on a
Fuck
male
else is new.
pill.
Yeah,
But
except that fucks up your nuts or something.
It will absolutely
basically shuts you
kill
down.
your testosterone. Here's the problem with that, though.
Yeah.
Imagine if there was a pill, and especially if this is over the counter, that would destroy your testosterone, the potential for abuse of something like that.
Spiking
people-
public things and yeah.
If people could just get a hold of it, yeah, what they could do with that. And I would not.
You
I
have a
won't even
bunch of
talk about all
emotional
the
men
things
is
that
what
could
you
be
got.
happening. Well,
Them plastic bottles.
all the
Xenoestrogens.
phytoestrogens
Yeah, it's already,
and the
it's already in the system. I mean,
xenoestrogens.
you're already getting
Let's
pumped
take a
with
quick commercial
estrogens.
break from our fan sponsors. We are fan funded. We got some super chats from BJ Tucker 5.
Give it
I
to him,
asked,
BJ.
I asked this $10. Thank you. I asked this tongue in cheek, but some presume that the end game of the red pill is The Handmaid's Tale, a Hulu like original show or whatever. Any truth to at least a lesser extent of that world, or just ludicrous?
Well, that's the opposite side of this that I wanted to talk about as well. So you're talking about which political party, which political ideology most closely aligns with the red pill thing. Okay, so it obviously isn't the leftist side of the thing. I think they were pretty much agreed on that. But is it the right side? Is it the conservative side?
I don't
Is
think
it
the conservative
traditional
side
conservative
is
side?
the answer, but it is the closest to the truth that is going to have any
Yeah,
influence or impact.
I only agree with that up to a point, because right now there are guys watching this who would tell you that the only valid sex, the only legitimate sex that you can have is reproductive sex, and anything else is a drug addiction.
Mm.
Meaning that you will jerk off until you can't see anymore. We have ubiquitous free online porn. Why is that? Because we've unfettered the male sexual imperative by offering up pornography as easy as it is.
Mm.
They will tell you that. You guys already know my reasons for not being into traditional conservatism. But thank you.
Yeah, I have a comment that I could kind of share in this. I think you'll like a lot, Rollo. So I was talking to Dr. Sean Smith, one of the fellow RMG guys, 21Con speakers, a few weeks ago, and he asked me what I thought about TradCon beliefs, traditional conservatism, things like that, and if I was TradCon. I said no. But when I look at TradCon beliefs versus what the shit we see right now, they're infinitely more rational than what we have now. Even so, they're not perfect. And for a fact, we can see that they led to where we are today. America used to be, in say, the 40s and 50s, a lot more, they had way different beliefs than we do now. That was better, but it wasn't perfect. Why? We're here right now. Whatever holes and weaknesses those things had, they led to where we are today. So when I say in my speeches at the convention, and when I talk about the future is masculine, that's what I mean. We have to build a better future that's not just a replica of 1950s. Rollo talks a lot about the, TradCons want a time machine. They don't want the truth. Yeah, I'm on board with Rollo on that. Like, I like a lot of TradCon stuff, but I know it's not perfect. I know we need to build something better. The same way this country was founded, by building something better than what we had. It's the best thing the world's ever seen. So we need to figure out what that is. And I think we're in the middle of figuring that out.
Well, if we were to say, okay, the answer is to take away women's rights. Okay, well, let's just say that maybe that's going to be something that's going to stave off disaster. Imagine telling that to a woman who is a traditional conservative. What's she going to say? If you say, you know what, sorry, baby, but if we're going to turn the ship around, we're going to have to take away your rights. And I know you voted for Trump, but sorry, but that's the way it is. What's she going to say?
I've had conversations with friends in public spaces about this, and I've seen absolute horrified looks from. I remember having a conversation about this with a friend of mine. We're in the grocery checkout, and just terrified looks. Nobody said anything, but I've also had conversations with some women about this. Of course, I never phrase it as a right. I would never take away anybody's rights, but voting is a privilege. Women shouldn't.
Yeah, you're right. You do have to stop calling it a right.
Yeah, right. You have to change the language.
And I've explained it too. And the way I usually put it is, imagine you've got a group of maybe 50 people on an island, half men, half women, but only about 20 of them are of, adult age. You got the bunch below that are able-bodied, useful. You got 10 men, you got 10 women, you got a bunch of older men, and you've got a bunch of children that can't really do anything. And you have to survive. You have wild animals that the group has to be protected against.
They're not going to value the opinions of the children.
Yeah, and security and all this.
They might consult, but you don't get to cast a vote.
Yeah,
totally agree.
You're going to be reliant on the people who are capable of fighting off the animals and doing the hard work. Those are the people that are going to be at risk, though, doing this. So however it gets done should be up to them. They are the ones that are putting their necks on the line for the rest of the group. So they should be able to decide. If you're sitting back at home safe and you aren't the one that's out there doing it, you shouldn't be able to have a say.
I would
say the ideal sort of scenario.
Okay. The thing I would say is,
an ideal
scenario is great, but what I'm saying is I think that it is a mistake to think that traditional conservatism is any different than the leftist side when it comes to the rights of women, when it comes to fundamental red pill beliefs or red pill truths that we've gone from being like on my first speech at the 2017 21 convention. I did a speech called Hypergamy Micro to Macro. Okay, this is the macro side of that. Okay, now we're talking about where we have gone from like pickup artistry all through our personal lives, how to have a better marriage, and now we're talking about things on a social scale. Okay, just what I said before, the sisterhood uber alles, I would say it is almost even more intense in the conservative side of the spectrum. I would say women will you will ask a conservative woman.
Oh, it's just as intense. 100%.
Yeah, you will ask a conservative woman, say, "Are you a feminist?" And they'll go, "Oh no, I'm not a feminist." And you say, "Okay, we're going to take away your right to vote or your privilege to vote, whatever." They will lose their fucking minds because there is nobody in this room and nobody watching this and no woman, in society right now who has been born after 1965 that hasn't had feminism in some way influence the way that they think. So even if you all these people say, well, women don't really identify as being feminists these days. I'm like, that's bullshit. Who cares? It's meaningless right now because you were brought up to believe in all of this stuff because it was in your schools, it was in your Disney shows, it was in your music. It's listen to Beyonce, okay? I'm a feminist. We don't think of those when somebody's asking you, are you a feminist? We don't think about the influence that song had on us.
Well, I got to tell you, when I found your work, I was amazed at how much feminism had impacted me in ways I didn't realize.
Scary.
I hate
it's everywhere.
So if it impacted you to that degree,
feminism before I found your book, and then I'm reading it, I'm like,
well, we
have
done.
Looking back and thinking about the way that you thought about things previously, the things you've said and done because of that programming, and thinking back now, holy fuck, what the hell was wrong with me that I would have even considered saying something like that? Like, well, hey, you want to go out shooting? Oh, I got to see if my wife.
Check it with the boss.
Got to check with the boss.
Why the fuck
you're a slave.
Why would
Why
you
would
think
you
that?
even think
Right.
that?
But
No.
you
Do
but you
do
think
I want to?
you know why you think that? Because you were brought up and you were conditioned by the blue pill to think that way, to be pre-whipped.
It's
So-
sick.
Conditioning.
That's not
So
what
just
it is.
just to say that, like,
No,
and
it's-
I'm playing devil's advocate here. I think the sisterhood uber alles, it transcends religion. I'm writing a book on it right now about religion and just how assimilated mainstream religions have become by feminism.
Here's an idea.
Politics, race, you name it. The sister, and I mean that in the sincerest way when it comes to politics. We've had several shows or topics of discussion here on this show about red pill women. So, I mean, how does that factor in to the conservative side of the spectrum? Then, if we're going to say there's no such thing as a red pill woman,
Yeah, I was
then-
going to say, is there a vacuum here for a political
yes,
organization that's
Yes.
red pilled? Call it,
there needs to be
let's call it the
something
Red
new.
Party.
There needs to be something new. I
I
thought.
think if we followed the Constitution, we'd be pretty good.
Yeah,
shit,
right.
right.
You think? Should we do that?
Yeah.
Might be something.
Yeah,
a
maybe
little
like-
closer
maybe
to
like call it the
Kurt
Constitutional
Doolittle's
Party.
Propertarianism.
Oh yeah, I've seen him. I have a thought on this that I think the country, when it was founded, the founding fathers talked a lot about how they hated political parties and they were surprised they were forming and stuff like
Right.
Well, that's
Yeah.
why they split
That's
off from
why,
England.
like, even
Like,
our
that's why they
conversation
left
is based
the British
on a
Empire.
paradigm that was not intended for our
Mhm.
country to begin with.
Right.
So we're talking about vote, who should not vote. Really, I don't think the founders wanted us to vote for any of these evil parties.
Yeah.
And the fact that we've got such a large federal government really transcends anything they ever expected for us to have small, localized, state-governed
weak central
government.
government.
Yeah, a weak central government with a huge. Now we got a huge central government with a huge army,
The states are dying off.
and the states.
And it's
are
got a
one-
massive addiction to
They'd
debt
probably
too.
already be shooting.
Look at MAGA though. I mean, MAGA. This is maybe hell of a statement even on this panel, but when I see like the modern Republican Party, the MAGA movement within the Republican Party that Trump's leading, and then the Democrats going like anti-free speech, super pro-war. They're war. You know, liberals now 10 years ago were anti-war. Now they're pro-war. Right? It's wild the way things are turning.
I think they're just contrarian. Anything
Well-
that Trump says, they're automatically
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
unthinkingly.
Yeah, it's
Here's
tribal.
the
It's
thing.
tribalism,
Here's
is what it is.
striking me is that you're seeing one party. You're seeing two parties in America. The two major parties. One is going pro-America. The other one's going anti-America.
Mhm.
It's
That's
not just
really what it
un-American.
is. Yeah.
It's fucking hostile. It's aggressive. It's censorship. It's anti-free speech. It's anti-gun. It's anti-freedom. It's pro-debt. It's fucking crazy.
Did you see that video? It's been going around my Twitter feed, and it's this ball-headed chick that looks like the one from Star Trek, the first Star Trek movie. I don't know if you know, but you probably know. Yeah, a little bit of a mohawk, and she is just like
Oh,
she looks
talking
like,
to the MAGA
and
guy?
yeah, she's talking to the guy with MAGA
Yeah,
hats,
yeah.
and there's a woman there too with them as well.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
so-
And she's saying that scares me, and she's like, it's just playing. It's almost like performance art, you know. She's like, she's like, yeah, she's looking, yeah,
Infantile.
she's like, that's scary. And then she's trying to say, no, it's emotions that make us, you know, who we are. And they're saying, you know, just go get some facts. And there are the forces of logic and reason, and she's the
Closing.
forces of emotion.
closing couple seconds of that video were amazing.
Oh,
She
yeah.
goes- she goes, it's all emotions. He's like, yeah, emotions change, facts don't.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, and then one more thing to add to put on the fire here, just like I was saying, how in a feminine primary social order it becomes more collectivist. Well, it is also based on a primarily on feels before reals.
Mhm.
It's what Dr. Everett Piper talks about when I'm on Pat Campbell's show. He's the guy that comes on before me, and he has said that he has seen this, and it is endemic in our political discourse right now, where it's all about how people feel, and they need their safe spaces, and they need to feel secure, and that's, you know, words are weapons, words are violence. Why? Because it makes me feel bad, and that's what she was just saying. That hat makes me feel
And
bad.
that you've written about that this is one of the basic ways men and women are different. Is
Yes.
women prioritize emotions,
Before-
then instinct,
yeah.
then logic.
Which is okay.
Men and
So
girls.
you've obviously read that series that I had. It's instinct, emotion, and reason. Men that's women. That's men. For women, it is instinct, emotion, reason. For men, it is instinct, reason, and then emotion. Because once we figure out what the hell's going on, then we got to process how we feel about what we just had to deal with. Women see something, our instincts interpret it. Then how they feel about that is what freaks them out. And then what are they going to do about it? Men prioritize that differently, and we're doing that in our political discourse.
Yes.
Why? Because women control the social discourse and control the feminine primary social order. That's
I think
exactly what
what's
I
really
was saying.
hard for guys to understand too is that to women that makes complete sense. Prioritizing
Mhm.
emotions above
Mhm.
everything else.
And
is
she
right. That's just like,
and the great example was that bald-headed girl.
yeah,
She was
exactly.
she didn't know why you don't understand what she said. We was speaking different languages. Ryan had this really great post on the Red, I think it was on the Red Man Reddit or Red Pill Reddit, about, oh no, it was a purple pill discussion, and it was how one side wants to show correctness and right, be factual, where the other one wants to prove belief. It wants to prove that they're doing the facts may show belief. So it's like whatever is like, you can show them what is factual, and the people on that side of the spectrum believe that wins the argument or solves the argument. Where the people on the opposite side, they think that no matter what those facts are, if you did the right thing or you did those things for the right reason, then that wins the argument. And again, male way of thinking, female way.
It's like Cortez saying that, she's morally right, even if she's not factually correct. Or obviously that's, you can't have that. It doesn't work that way. But it's where the thinking is coming from. But with the instincts, real quick though, wouldn't the instincts for men just be heuristics based on rational thought, whereas the instincts for women might be heuristics based on emotional thinking?
Instinct goes before both of those.
Oh, yeah, I'm just saying, would the instincts just be heuristics based on?
Well, when I wrote that series, it was something that I was actually kind of sorting out for myself, because when we have, and this is just from an evolutionary standpoint, when just the way that we evolved, when we see something in our immediate environment, we have to respond to it. So it's stimulus. Okay. So that stimulus, we have developed instincts over the years to say, okay, like fight or flight, for instance. Is that a saber-toothed tiger? Holy shit, I better fight or I better run my ass off, right? That's the instinct part. When men put themselves in front of live ammunition in a active shooting situation, and they get in the way of women that they don't even know just to take the bullet, that's instinct, because that is just how we have evolved. It's something that's part of our mental firmware. That's one way of interpreting that stimulus. Okay. Once you're past the instinctual side, then for women, it's how do I feel about what I'm looking at right now? And those emotions are actually a biological response. So like oxytocin can make you feel one way. A lot of testosterone can give you roid rage and can make you feel a certain way. There's other, dopamine, dopamine hits, endorphins, there's all kinds of chemicals in our chemical cocktail that can influence our emotional state. So don't think that it is just like, but one of the things that women do and more than a few men do is they apply these supernatural meanings to emotions, just like bald-headed girl. Astrology. Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So that kind of stuff. So the emotional part becomes something supernatural to women. And that's the most important thing, because they have a different way, their biology and their brain chemistry and the way that their brains are wired is more for communication. It's more for interpersonal, like seeing faces, that kind of stuff. Well, I think what Pinker was saying, it was men are interested in things and women are interested in people. And that's part of our brain structure. So once you're past the emotional part, then you move on to the rational part or the reason part. Okay. And that's, what am I going to do with this information? What have I learned in the past that can help me solve this problem? And what can I do with all this stuff? What does this mean? And how can I use this information to make my life better or to build something? And that's where men come in. So for women, it is instinct, emotion, really big emotion. And then there's reason, and there's trying to figure out what they can do. Okay. For men, it is instinct, reason, and then emotion. How does that make them feel? Because men and women process emotions way, way differently, and particularly bad emotions. There's lots of research on
Love's
that.
a good one too.
Yeah. Yeah. Love's another one.
yeah.
That's another reason why we don't share the same concept of love.
Male and female brain structures vastly different.
I want to call it a quick super chat. I'm not going to read through it. We're going to wind down the show and soon. Want to close it pretty strong. But big shout out to BJ Tucker 5 again, $10 super chat. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You can respond to your question after the show. So I wanted to say that we started this episode talking about how the red pill has affected our lives outside of dating, outside of sex, looking at like the big picture, family, marriage, things like that. We've now gotten into politics, obviously, throughout the course of the show in different ways. We're about to wrap up. We got 10, 15 minutes left. I wanted to talk about what's coming up next with the red pill and politics. particularly the gender war that Roll is focusing on coming up in 2020. So I think we're going to see 2019 that's going to escalate. I mean, we're fucking a few weeks into 2019. It's spiraling out. It's amazing how fast it's escalating. I think we're going to see that continue through 2019, and then 2020 we're going to see it blow up, I guess.
Time to raise an army.
Yeah.
Well,
let's
that
talk about
was
this, though.
like you guys were just saying, hey, what's the solution? Obviously, it's not the left, and it's imperfect on the right. So what's left is we need to create our own thing. We need to have our own party or our own direction or our own whatever it is. I don't even know what to call it. Like I was telling you guys before, it's like I don't align with the left. I used to be, I don't anymore, but I don't also fully align with the right. And so like I don't know what I am. You guys say, well, you're a libertarian. I've never identified as a libertarian either. I don't know what I am. So you know, maybe that's what we need to do is develop some sort
That's
of
what I was thinking about earlier based on the conversation
thing.
we're having here, is that you're seeing the political parties get so fucking polarized that you have two choices, pro-America or anti-America. So that's what came to mind based on that earlier. But the gender war to me is pretty interesting. Like I think we're going to really see this amp up in 2020 and throughout the rest of this year too.
I think it's important to clarify that by gender, it's a war about gender, not men versus women so much, if I'm understanding correctly.
Generally. But there's some exceptions, you know.
Well, because there's a bunch of males
yeah.
who maybe are male gender, but they're not men.
But we do see the
Vichy
gender
males.
war.
They're allies. They're allies.
They're allies.
They're allies.
We've
yes.
seen some pretty savage stuff just in the past few months. Look at the gender war in terms of Brett Kavanaugh becoming a Supreme Court justice. His whole life and family went to hell. I mean, the whole country, well, not the whole country, but millions of women were angry with this dude, storming the place, spitting, you know, throwing all kinds of crazy shit was going on. That's not the last time we're going to see that.
No.
Of course,
Oh,
we're going to see worse
Ruth
stuff.
Bader Ginsburg is
Yeah.
if she's not already dead and they're just propping her up for things, she will be sued.
Yeah.
Weekend at Bernie's.
Like you may actually see, instead of reconstituting in the U.S., you may see masculine flight to those areas and countries that actually support, relatively traditional human heuristics as far as the development of the family, the value of the family structure, the value of the masculine
Very
and
few
feminine.
places like this.
Well, yeah.
You're right.
You
And that's the problem.
you
That's
see,
the
and Donovan has talked about this. Donovan Sharp has talked about this before. You see this in the black communities. They are sick of black women and they want to go to Brazil. There's a documentary on. I wrote a essay on the documentary called Bachelor Nation, and that's a fantastic. You guys should watch that. It's just a fantastic documentary. But it's these guys who are saying, I don't want to have to deal with all the head case with these women who are like these empowered black women that are, they're not attractive, they're bitchy, they're bossy, they're unfeminine. And so what do? They go off to Brazil to look for a feminine woman because the culture is different there, and they're finding it there. But so what happens when we come back to the United States? They say, "Oh, you're going on sex tourism," or they make them villains for leaving leaving the tribe.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've looking at restructuring my professional life, it afforded me the opportunity to realize that my partner sits down and comes back to me and goes, "Whatever you decide, the family's going to support." And I know in my personal life, we have family history that did not survive World War II, that was in Europe, because they did not leave. And I have no illusions to fighting my own government. You're going to lose when you fight your own government, whether you lose physically your life or your integrity with all these other things.
Well, we have some counterexamples.
Yeah, well, but there's tremendous risks involved. I mean, tremendous risks.
Will not side with the left.
Right. And so you sit down and say, I could see men getting to the point where they say they will leave prior to doing that they will seek their own interest, over living under these conditions. But ultimately, I look at it and go,
that's what MGTOW is.
Precisely right.
That's what MGTOW is.
My focus is, I don't care if society, I do, but I'm not going to focus on whether society collapses or not. I'm fighting for my family and my nuclear set, that smallest foreign government that I can truly affect. My relationship with Mary Frances, my children, my family, and from there, and it's a Testito family, that Roman notion of the tortoise shell, the basic formation, and go from the basic formation up rather than look at holistically this culture and boiling it down to the family.
This is one of the roots of the Declaration of Independence, to secure these rights.
Correct.
Governments are instituted among men.
Property rights, speaking rights, all those
literally went out and built governments for this exact purpose.
Correct.
Now it's getting out of control.
Right.
Yeah. Ellie, do you want to hop in on this? The gender war coming up in 2020 that we're seeing escalate?
Yeah, and I know we're talking about, being led to slaughter, and it has the shit has to hit the fan. I think what's going to emerge as a result is a return to religion. I think, and I know for a fact that our ancestors used stories and used metaphor and used religion to re-league man with our true leader. We're talking about fallen people, Donald Trump or even Ron Paul. We're putting all of our hopes, dreams, wishes, and belief in the religion of government. That's really what has happened. And as America has become more secular, we've become more radically religious about this war of dust. So it may be the right thing for us to be led to slaughter so that we be led back to the Creator, to our God, to our meaning, to what the patriarchs of old understood and delivered to young men, which was meaning. Why? What are you here for? What are you doing? And what is the big picture of this all?
What are you going to do before you die?
You're asking me, what am I going to do?
No, it just comes to mind as a thought. It's like we're all, no matter what time you were born in human history, now or 50,000 years ago, you're going to die someday.
Mhm.
Every single man sitting here is going to die. Who knows when? Tonight, tomorrow, 50 years from now, it's going to happen. So yeah, the mission and purpose comes to mind with that.
Right. We have no mission but to consume. We're taught how to be really good consumers and to vote for the best slave master.
Yeah.
So shit hitting the fan has to happen here and here first.
Wow.
And we've got when we become disillusioned enough that we can not comply and live a life of civil disobedience and in the way the founders expected to take individual responsibility for ourselves, for our families, for our local government, state government. And then it goes from the individual integration to the integration of the world. What we're doing is looking out there and saying, they need to fix this, they're wrong, we need that guy, as opposed to going from the inside in and say, align myself with my truth, be a husband with my wife, a father with my children, generative with my community, and then working out this way. So this illusion, because we all live in the fucking clouds, and this is just one more example of us living in this transcendent make-believe cloud. It all has to crumble for us to come back home. And I think that's when we'll start rebuilding.
I really like how you put that.
I think you're right.
Inside.
I think you're right. And I'll tell you why I think you're, well, of course, I'm writing a book about this right now. But prior to the sexual revolution, what did we have to keep as checks and balances or as a buffer against the worst aspects of hypergamy or the worst aspects of male's sexual imperatives? We had religion. We had social stigma. Like I've made this comparison a lot. My mother-in-law comes from a society or social order that was pre-sexual revolution. So when a woman had a child out of wedlock, they would take that child and put that child away or that kid away, and they would have the kid and they would give it up for adoption. But the social stigma so much so that the family would bring shame on the family. We don't have that anymore. In fact, we encourage single motherhood to the point.
Celebrate it.
Yeah, we celebrate. We celebrated the abortion decision just recently. They were cheering for this. Okay, but why is that? Because those checks and balances are no longer there anymore. They're gone. And that's,
you don't suffer the consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, these consequences were life and death. They were dire.
Yeah, you could. And then, you can say what you want to about Muslim cultures right now, but they have their women in check because they still have those checks and balances as part of that culture and as part of that religion. And that's one of the things that the MGTOWs say, well, where it's all going to go to hell, but it's going to be the Muslims who take over because they already have that in place because they're aligned and they know where they are in the universe. And, you know, and if you have a child out of wedlock, well, that might be an honor killing for you, or that might be some kind of stigma or some kind of social disgrace. So, you know, if women know that there are consequences for those actions, and men know that there are consequences for their own actions, they're going to behave in such a way that you're not going to have the kinds of social ills that we have today in a feminine primary social order. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that there will be a return to religion at some point.
Whenever
And
this is
boundaries and conservatism
Yes.
and rules and commandments.
We're already seeing that with the Lost Boys. It's one of the reasons why Jordan Peterson is such an enigma right now. It's like he just says, you know, stand up straight and put your arms back and wash your penis or something like that.
Yes.
And men want that.
Mhm.
They will want, that's a direction. It might be some screwball direction as far as I'm concerned, but they want that. They want that direction. They want to have what are, you know, we call them rudderless. Well, you give them a rudder at least, and they can go where they want to.
And that
People get my
rudder is
book, and they
fatherlessness.
have some kind of a Chilton manual. You know, they have some kind of manual that gives them at least an idea. I don't do 12 steps in the Rational Male, but I give you the nuts and bolts, and I say, here's how you can put the car together. Go put the car together. I'm not interested in making better men. I'm interested in men making themselves better men, and that's where I've always
Quick
come
hat
from.
tip to our channel sponsor.
Yeah.
If you need to wash your Johnson tactical soap, Jordan Peterson probably would approve it. We'll see. So link is in the description.
And
Also-
bodybarber.com, BAWDY barber.com.
Closing comments?
Yeah, we got to wrap it up. A few minutes. Closing comments, gentlemen.
The future absolutely is masculine because there's no viable alternative.
I'm going to leave it where it is. You guys have been great. So
Yeah, this is a great show. I mean, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
we're
have anything else
getting
to add.
good
Yeah.
comments on
Yeah.
this one.
Solid show, solid feedback from guys in super chats, and
We just got another one. $20 Canadian.
Yes.
shout out.
Uh,
Is that like-
We'll read it
shout
off
out.
real
Thank
quick
you.
and maybe answer in the chat later. Richard was on Tinder and Bumble for 3 months, 47 matches, no dates. Hypergamy's a bitch. I need to be better. What is your number one recommendation for men in 40s to secure better women?
Get off of Tinder.
It's
true.
Yeah. The fish in the pond.
Get off of Tinder and Bumble.
Yeah.
Meet them in person.
We'll
Yeah.
do this in the chat. But
Old
appreciate
school.
Super chat, man, 100%.
Yeah, we'll answer that.
Someone will get back to it.
That's easy. That's just chase your own excellence and stop
Yeah.
putting women on a pedestal.
All right.
Men's point of origin, yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. So this has been fun. I think we should do this again sometime. I wish we had more occasion to do this a little bit more often.
I'm glad we have this, this panel and everybody's remote, like local, somewhat remote, but local.
Yeah.
Give us an opportunity to get together. We did some cool shit. We shot guns. We drove a Lamborghini. We were hanging out with
You
Elliot
both caught your
Hulse.
first fish, man.
Caught a big ass
Yeah.
fish.
Yeah.
I want to go like offshore, like deep sea
Oh, yeah.
shit.
Yeah,
like,
you want to go
fight
on
a
it. You want to
sailfish.
go. We need to take you on
I
like
want to
a
have
big
a fight.
head
Just wanna
boat.
get in
Yeah.
there with a fish. Just like
Fight for life.
Punch some sharks.
That was fun.
reel it
Take-
in,
take
man. It was
them
awesome. It was
spearfishing.
amazing. I loved it.
Yep, that was good.
So maybe that's the reason why we should be getting together.
So, at some point, I'd like to get Donovan in here. I'd like to get Ryan down
Yeah.
here.
we need to build out a proper.
Well,
studio.
we'll get Carl, but we'll like put a big
Yeah.
old mask
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Carl.
To bring you to some
Guys,
jam
we
nights.
need-
Yeah, we
we need
could.
to build proper studios to continue to do this on a more
Well,
in-depth
man
level.
looking for
Yeah.
millions of dollars to build 21 studios.
Yes. Well, I
Certainly-
architect sitting over here for it.
Certainly helps if you support with
So
content creation that comes from sponsors that actually value men and masculinity, the stuff we're talking about. A guy that got red pill going through divorce and said, hey, why don't I take a soap product and infuse pheromones in it and give a guy a little bit of an edge,
I
right?
gotta say, people have
I like the
criticized
guy.
soap.
I
On
like
my
the guy a
channel.
lot.
They've criticized it. I've seen criticized Rich, George.
You're showering.
Ryan, all
You're
these
showering.
guys.
If you're watching our channels,
Yeah.
buy soap from a company that supports what we make.
or buy a shaver from
Let's
one.
Let's put it this way too, though. Scott is a guy who showed up at the convention.
Yeah, put his
This
money where
guy,
his mouth
fucking,
was.
he put his money where his fucking mouth was. Got him a flight, came to Florida, got a hotel, and came to the convention. Talked to the attendees, talked to me, talked to Rich, talked to the speakers. He showed up. A lot of these guys, these haters and losers, they don't show up.
No.
No
Yeah.
action. All bitching, all talk, no action. Soap is where it's at. Tactical fucking soap.
Yeah.
Super soap.
10% off. Check out with RMG. The link's pinned in the description below.
There you go.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Yeah.
It was really
Awesome,
good.
guys.
Thank you.
Oh, last thing, visit patreon.com/redman group. Check out links in the description for the Patreon. You can get there for a monthly Q&A. It's private, not on the channel.
Yep.
There's also social media links for the Redman group to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. Also, hit the like button on this video if you haven't yet. We have, who knows how many viewers, like 1,000 or something. And there's not that many likes, which means some of you are watching and not liking.
Yeah,
You
man.
smash that like button like it's the matriarchy. Smash, smash, smash. Equal rights, equal lefts.
That's what you need.
Hit the
Yeah.
like button. We all need the like button. Don't hit the other one. The like button. Share it with your friends. We also are on Podbean, so you can go to redmangroup.podbean.com, get the audio files. It'll be on iTunes within a couple days.
Yeah.
With that said, this has been RMG episode 51
Yep.
in 21 Studios Global Command in Orlando, Florida. I've had with me live Socrates. I've had Drew Bay, Elliot Hulse, myself, Anthony Dream Johnson, Richard Cooper, and Rollo Tomasi. Thanks, gentlemen. We're going to wind down the show. George, you need to hit that button.
Hit
Right,
that
go ahead.
button right there.
We can just hang out on the show for a minute.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
hit the stop broadcast right there. Yeah.
There we go.
Thanks.